Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have another excellent show. Trust that you had a blessed Easter. We're going to start off things with the Honourable Minister for Public Finance and Economic Development, Mr. Roy McTaggart, together with the Financial Secretary, Mr. Kenneth Jefferson. So please join us for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Fidelity Bank. For all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Also brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile. Saving lives today. Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email Talk Today at candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us as we invite you to be a part of our discussion. I'm honored that the Minister for Public Finance and Economic Development, Mr. Roy McTaggart, together with our Financial Secretary, was able to join us this afternoon, and hopefully we get a chance to look at a number of things. Let's say, it's economics that makes the world go round. It's economics that unifies the people. Well, for some of us anyway, we'll see. Gentlemen, good afternoon, and trust you had a blessed Easter. Mr. McTaggart, good afternoon, sir. And Mr. Jefferson, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ebanks, and to your listening public to the Talk Today program.
All right. And Mr. McTaggart, sir, are we able to have you up again?
I'm reading you loud and clear, Mr. Sterling. Good day to you and to all the listeners who are listening to us today.
All right. Well,
and good to hear the FS's voice as well.
Isn't it? He has one of those voices, man, that just, soothing, nurturing, and encouraging, makes you feel good. I tell you, boy,
very stable and very, very warming.
Indeed, sir. So thank you for joining me in saying that, because I tell you, he's just one of those people you just want to stand next to and fly a kite in some afternoons and eat some mangoes. We'll get back to that.
We can do that.
We'll get back to that very soon, huh? Very soon.
Absolutely.
Well, I know that in your personal lives, you have a lot of commitments to our community, and your public lives equally. So thank you on behalf of our country for your continued stewardship and looking after not just the finances in terms of the dollars and cents, but in terms of value for money and prudence and the notion that we talk about good governance. So to you and the entire team, elected and appointed within the public service, thank you all very much.
And I thank you very much for those sentiments. And, you are right. We are facing some really challenging times. But I'm confident that working together, that is everyone working together, Sterling, we will overcome this. And I think at the end of the day, we are going to emerge a better country and a better people for it.
Amen. Amen. And as we get started.
Thank you, Mr. Ebanks, too, for your earlier remarks. Appreciate it very much. And we're obviously, Mr. McTaggart and myself, obviously here to assist as best as we can to impart, information to help the public to understand, from an economic and financial point, what we're currently facing. So that's what we're obviously here to do, and we'll do our level best to make sure it's put across in a sensible and understandable manner for the average person on the street.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm hopeful as people listen to it and look at the economics of things, that they don't confuse it with the accounting costs or the financial ramifications. Look at it as that's the only thing. There's so much more. So maybe with this afternoon's discussion, we can see it, and it's not just about a bailout, as some in the media like to use a word, or a concession to this or a grant to that. It's all about, making sure that as a people, words that we used before, sustainable, words that we use for that there's continuity, that they are seen collectively, not as sort of individual pillars in and of themselves.
Yes.
From that perspective, then, I'll be guided by both of you so that we understand. But there were things that we were interested in. Obviously, anything that transpires has a cost. There's a financial as well as an economic cost. There are things that we need to do in order to get where we were, but there were things that happened in order to position us to where we are. Looking at those things, and we talk about the micro, but more importantly the macroeconomic implications. Maybe we can get into some of that at some point.
Yeah, I'm happy to take the questions and to discuss the issues with you, Sterling. I'd just be quite honest and prep you and your listeners that we may not be able to discuss, or not be able to shed light on everything that you may ask about. And I will just be honest with you and say, I don't know those things at this point.
Okay.
But whatever we can share, we will share with you.
Well, thank you for that. And I believe most of us subscribe to the perspective that it's best to be honest and candid. I believe people
absolutely
want to know. There are those of us who had the mindset way back when that, you don't know, you're not smart enough, you're not privy, you're not reading, as it were. These are not the times, It's about understanding and getting there. And I would also ask if you would allow me to say that if I do ask a question or say something that is ill-informed or is maybe not timely, forgive me. It's not the intent in any which way or form. It's just that it's about discourse and maybe putting us on a footing where we get to that point.
Sure.
With that in mind, anything initially you want to maybe share with us, or can I just dive right in and say, where are we? What sort of impact are we looking at?
Yeah.
What would be best?
Yeah. Well, there's just one bit of information I wanted to share from the very outset, Sterling, simply because I just learned about it today. And I thought it was a very positive element because it does bode well for us as we move forward. And, basically I learned this morning that, Moody had completed their review of our credit rating. And they have reaffirmed their AA3 rating for the Cayman Islands with a stable outlook, which is essentially no change from the last rating in 2019. Now, to the average person on the street, that may not mean very much. But to us here in government and to the Treasury and to the Ministry of Finance, it is very meaningful for us. Not only for the fact that we have probably what is the highest rating in the region, regionally, of any overseas territory or even major country in the region. What it means for us is, as we move through with dealing with the crisis, is that if we find ourselves in a situation where we have to go out to borrow money, it means that we are going to be able to borrow at very favorable rates, which will be extremely beneficial for the country. So, I'm proud once again that this is where we have gotten with Moody's, and that they appreciate the efforts and the stewardship that we have brought to government now for many years. And so I just want to start out with that bit of information because I feel really happy today because of it and for what it means for us.
And especially at this time when it's going to be probably a challenge going forward for many, not just companies, but many countries as well. So,
well, you are right, and I've already seen over the weekend. I did see a note from Moody's where they had put, just for example, the Bahamas on credit watch for a downgrade, and I think most countries are going to see their credit ratings downgraded quite significantly by Moody's moving forward, and that means for them if they can borrow, that their borrowing costs are likely to be quite substantially more than what they would have been.
Right. And for those who are, thinking of it, think of the individual who goes to the bank and the bank says, well, you're a good credit risk, we can lend it to you at, 1%. The next person comes along and says, well, we're not quite sure about you. You don't have the collateral, the track record. We'll lend it to you at 2%. And it's going to cost more.
That is exactly how it operates.
This is how it is, right? All right. Well, with that, let me try my very best to pick.
Ebanks,
Yes, sir.
If I could just interject and jump in. I think for our listening public, I think a useful place might be, and I won't dwell on it too long, a useful starting point might be, let's consider what government's plans were before COVID-19 came along, i.e. the government's budget for 2020. That will obviously give us an indication of what we intended to do, and it's another obvious point that government's performance determines to a great extent its ability to respond to crises such as this. So its current year performance, as well as what it came into the current year with, the strength that it came into the current year with, are obviously important in being able to attack and mitigate the current situation that are facing the Cayman Islands. So if I could, as quickly as I can, just give us the scene setting for the current year budget and what that entails.
Yes, sir.
So when we started presenting the 2020 and 2021 budget, we did that in November last year. November 2019, we presented the budget, got it approved. I think everyone in the Cayman Islands knows that the government has a January 1st to the 31st of December year. We had envisaged the 2020 year having revenues of around $825 million for that year. We expected our expenses to be in the region of $760 million, and that the central government would have a surplus of around $65 million or so, and that our public authorities would have a combined deficit of around $17 million for the year, and then our entire public sector would have an overall surplus then of about $48 million. So that was what we had hoped for. Along comes COVID-19 and completely turns that on its head. What Minister McTaggart has asked the Minister of Finance and the entire financial CFOs within government to do is to keep a very careful watch on our revenues and our expenditures. So we have done that, and we will continue to do that. Again, very briefly, the results of the 31st of March indicate that the government was bang on budget for those first 3 months. But that is obviously not the message that we want to portray to the public. We would not want the public to believe that the government is going to get through the rest of 2020 bang on budget. The reason why we got through the first 3 months pretty much bang on budget in terms of revenues was because a substantial part of that $825 million, a substantial part of that revenue number is derived from financial services related fees, and those fees are due at the end of in January each year, and normally entities would have paid those fees by the end of March. So when we collected and put together, compiled the March results, a substantial part of that revenue total would have been related to financial services, and a substantial portion of that too would have been received by the 31st of March. We'll recall that the country closed its borders around the 23rd of March, and therefore the financial services revenues would have been received by then. So I think the message is we've done well up until the end of March, because that's sensible and precisely what we expected to happen. The revenues, financial services revenues, were received before the country was shut down. Going forward, April onwards will be the true test of how those revenues and expenses are going to perform. and already I see from the March results that there are troubling areas. There are some troublesome areas. So, for example, tourism accommodation tax to the end of March was some $5 million behind where we expected it to be at the end of March. So I think the message at this point would be it is April onwards that is going to be the true test of what the government's financial performance will be for the rest of the year. And we want to send a message to the public that we certainly don't expect at all to have a surplus for the year as originally intended or envisaged. We certainly don't expect to achieve a $825 million revenue figure for the year. And so we have to monitor very carefully what our revenues are. At the same time, knowing that government actually needs to help and has begun helping the public through its expenditure to assist us with this difficult period. So I think that is the scene that I would like to set with the public, that we've done well to the end of March, but the rest of the year is a true test.
Mm-hmm. And as I listen to recognize, as you just shared, revenues that we expected from tourism sector will probably not be there, but then the increased demands for services and expenditure is going to see our outlays perhaps that much higher. Now,
and what I would say, if I could jump in here,
yes,
to Sterling, is that you're hitting on the two areas that are that government and the Treasury and our Ministry of Finance have to monitor. One, we face a situation of declining revenues going forward, and it's going to be quite substantial because it's not just about tourism. You have also the knock-on effects there, the effects on your restaurants, the effects on imports. All sorts of revenue streams are going to see revenue declines for the year. So you have declining revenues and increased, demands for government services as you move forward. And it's going to be, the challenge for us is going to be to managing those and ensuring that we have sufficient resources to enable us to see this through to the very end.
All right, Jess, let's pause quickly, take a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue the discussion. All right, stay tuned, please, for Talk Today.
Start getting your debt under control with a debt consolidation loan from Fidelity Bank. At Fidelity, your loan decision is quick with no runaround. Plus, with competitive interest rates and fees, we will help you reduce your monthly payments and get you back to living again. Don't let the burden of overwhelming debt tie you down this year. Call Fidelity today and let's make it happen with a Fidelity Bank debt consolidation loan. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Home, which should be a haven, can even be less of a safe space during curfew if someone is experiencing child abuse. If you or anyone you know is being abused, help is nearby. For emergencies, call 911. They will redirect your call to the relevant agencies. For general guidelines and inquiries, call the Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub, MASH, at 1-800-534-2273 or 945-0545. Alternatively, email mash@gov.ky.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected.
Customs and Border Control, CBC, is advising the public that the Extension and Visa Counter Office on Elgin Avenue remains closed until further notice. If persons, however, are no longer working for their employers or their work permit has been cancelled, we strongly encourage persons to take the necessary steps to leave the island once an opportunity presents itself. Persons desiring to leave may express this to the Governor's office by calling 244-3333 or email emergencytravel@gov.ky. The public is asked to continue checking and listening to the media advisories from CBC and work with regards to when and how they can ensure they remain compliant with regulations. We continue to ask the public to comply with the government curfew hours and to please stay home to save lives.
Hello, K-Man. I'm Quincy Brown. Anybody else getting mixed up with all these new coronavirus terms? Me too. But guess what? I've watched the press conferences and I've read the press releases and I've seen all the social media posts. Look here, I can help you out. Stay at home. Stay home. No gad about it. Stay your backside home. Una got it now? If Una want to stay up to the time with what's going on, there's only one place for the real information, the Cayman Islands government. Visit gov.ky/coronavirus. Now remember, keep washing your hands, keep following the rules, and keep taking care of each other. Saving lives is Caymankind.
Social distancing is crucial for our community to get back to normal. And never before has communication been so crucial. Keeping in touch with family, friends, and up to date requires you to stay in touch. Green Turtle offers the solution for both. Download the Green Turtle app now. Top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination in Cayman. Phones delivered to your home, and with the new rewards program, you can even redeem points towards a new phone and other products. Download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Hashtag Stay Home Cayman. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
The public is advised that the hard curfew, which is currently in place, prohibiting access to all beaches and the coastline, has been extended. This means that all beaches, including the coastline, will remain closed until 5 a.m. Friday, 17th April.
There is to be no swimming, snorkeling, fishing, exercising, or any activity on the beach or along the coastline during these times. Private owners with beach access are not allowed beyond the high water mark. This restriction has been imposed by the Commissioner of Police and will be strictly enforced. Stay home, Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thanks for joining us. We have as our guest the Honourable Minister for Public Finance and Economic Development, Mr. Roy McTaggart, and the Honourable Financial Secretary, Mr. Kenneth Jefferson. Gents, good afternoon again, and thanks for staying with us.
Good.
All right. Now, you were sharing, but let me just step aside and have you continue. You're looking at the our revenues and our expenditures and all the impacts. So, okay, from that perspective then, Mr. Minister, when we're obviously, I think people would appreciate that if the tourism sector is where it's at now, the costs or the revenues associated with the sector, tourism accommodation taxes, for instance, is referenced. But you also talked about the duties from imports through the restaurants, but even the building supplies. Those are potentially the troubling areas where we could see decreased revenues and then the corresponding expenditures as a result of the demands that the society, from the corporate community to the individual, asking of government for assistance, not just through NAU, but the corporate was it close to $15 million just the other day announced by the government to assist in the short term. So a lot of unexpected expenditures just in the short term. Can we look potentially at what other impacts on our revenue? I mean, the deficit may be more, the revenues will be significantly less. Where would that best case scenario put us at the end of the year?
At a very fairly significant deficit position for the year is just my view, but actually trying to peg it at this point, sterling and try to forecast it, it's a futile exercise right now because you just don't have sufficient clarity of where we are going, how long we are going to be here. Every day that we stay the way we are with the economy shut down, the numbers will get worse and worse and worse. And then when you look at you actually trying to reduce, to reopen the economy, highly unlikely they're just going to say everything is open and it's back to business as usual. You're going to have to reopen in stages. So it will be some time before you can actually get the economy, completely open and unfettered so that things can progress and get back to a sense of normalcy or a new normal for us. So it's extremely difficult to peg it at this point. I mean, it is fair to say that most, if not every one of our revenue lines are going to be adversely affected this year by it, and probably going forward for the next year. But tourism is easy.
Yeah.
Let me just give you an example. We were the tourism numbers. We were expecting about $36 million in tourism accommodation taxes for 2020. Up to the end of March, we had collected 8.3 million, and we were budgeted to have collected 13.1. So we were about $4 or $5 million short there. But basically that 8.3 million that we had collected through the end of March, there's very little for more to come in. There might be a few bits of odd revenues that haven't been made their way into us yet in terms of accommodation taxes. So we know that effectively we're going to have a shortfall there in the tourism revenues of somewhere between $30 and $35 million for the year. That's just one area. And that one is basically the easy one to look at because you can see where we are, that there is no one here and there is no tourism right now.
From that perspective, and I really appreciate you allowing us to just have this level of conversation, because I think it'll get people to the point where they start to understand that all of us impact this, as all of us are impacted by it. So if we can find a way to work together, we can make it come on strong, as we've taken to saying. With that in mind, it is, as you said, challenging. It's almost as if you bail out your catboat while the other guy is putting water back in, with a bucket, and you're using a calabash. From that perspective, two things. The second one would be the global impact on us. But secondly, as we look at reopening our economy, are there particular areas, not just as a priority, but could open the tourism sector from the international perspective? Obviously is off, but maybe the domestic tourism aspect. Are there things that we're looking at that potentially we could reopen from the perspective of getting the economy, the local economy, running again?
Well, I mean, I think when we took that decision to close down the economy, there was nothing fundamentally wrong. We were in a period of slowing growth, but really we still had a very vibrant economy, and I think that too was reflected in the the results that we saw for the first 3 months of the year, because by the end of March, we had collected about 35% of our revenue in that 3-month period. So you have to look now as you look to open it up, you open up the local elements of your economy first. Your traders and your merchants, they need to get open as quickly as we can safely do. Then you start spreading it out. To what extent hotels might be willing to reopen for local tourism is an issue that they will have to decide themselves, whether that is likely to result in any meaningful, effect on their own financial position. Because remember, when you open up, then you have to have all of the staff in place to service the business. But if you got full cost to operate your hotel, but you're only showing a 20-25% occupancy, that the numbers don't work.
Right.
So I think it's those are the things that entities will have to weigh in terms of their decisions whether to open up for local tourism. But those again are decisions that are far off and will be more of the corporate type of decisions that need to be made.
Now, with that in mind, employment obviously plays a role. We recognize again the tourism aspect is perhaps one of the easier ones to look at and analyze and understand. But our financial services sector, you referenced at the outset that by the end of the first quarter, we've collected the majority, if not all of the fees given when annual returns have to be filed. But from employment and from function.
Let me just make one observation
Yes,
there. What we did very late in before the end of March was that we extended the time for filing of annual returns and all of that to the end of June. So all of the revenues are not reflected in the March numbers as of this moment. So there was an extension given because there were challenges with things shutting down, with people getting payments made.
All right. Well, thank you, because I was going to ask about that, and I appreciate you. So potentially, then we could see some additional revenues coming in from our financial services sector end of June.
There is some to come. There are a few million dollars to come through. Yes,
Nothing
fair to say.
Nothing significant, but still a few dollars there.
Yes, it will. It will make a small difference, but I don't know what the final numbers would look like. But there is still revenue to come there.
All right, and from that, again, given what's transpiring globally, to what extent is the financial services functioning? We've collected the revenues. We see our friends and families who are working within that sector, but any sense of how that will continue over, say, the next 9 months? We know what tourism will look like potentially, but what about the financial services sector? As it is now, still a degree of confidence that sector will survive and continue. What feedback? And I know that may be outside the remit, and if it is, then we'll leave it for now. We can get the financial services minister on at some point, but for now, from that perspective.
Well, what I'll share with you are my views and my views alone.
Yes, sir.
I have not been briefed by the Minister for Financial Services.
Yes, sir.
My feeling and gut feeling tell me is that there is going, once you get opened up again, I think you will see a significant number, particularly on the hedge fund side. There will probably be a number of liquidations as well, because in the months leading up here and throughout this crisis, and with the downturn in the stock markets, everybody has been running for cover. Mm-hmm. And that is liquidating all of their investments. So you're going to find that many investment funds have probably been, quite decimated in terms of the redemptions. That you will find that many will no longer be viable, and they will probably go into liquidation and end their operations. But by the same time, too, you are also going to find new entities springing up, because there are going to be huge opportunities, I think, in the financial markets for good investments and in opportunities, and you are likely to see a fairly robust number of incorporations and new funds opening up once you get past the crisis and the economy opens up again. There's a lot of money in the investment market that is just sitting on the sidelines in cash, and everyone's just waiting for the crisis to pass to be able to start to put that money back to work again. So I think there's a potential there for a very bright future for financial services once you get past the hump. Mm-hmm. But for the time being, I think you basically are seeing that there will be likely be a slowdown in new incorporations right now in this particular period that we are in.
I guess, from that perspective, then our portfolios will probably change in the way we approach investing in the companies that we looked at previously. There may be a different strategy mix in relation to how those portfolios now are sort of put together by those funds. Yeah. From that, then, yes, sir.
Sorry, I wanted to jump into.
I was just about to ask you.
As much as anything else to give Minister Mike Taggart a break on his voice there. Just a point of detail, and I won't try not to make it too dry. But I just wanted to say for the benefit of the listening public, in terms of monitoring our revenues, which is obviously quite important for government to be able to do and to know where it's going. We in the Ministry of Finance, we have identified 24 individual lines of revenue whose budgeted amounts were $5 million and more for 2020. 24 lines of revenue, $5 million or more each. Those are the ones that we are monitoring. Why? Because those 24 lines, and I can give examples of some of those, account for 90% of the government's budgeted revenues for the year.
Because 120 million, right?
So if we go wrong, if we underperform on those 24, we're obviously going to be in trouble. So examples would be other import duties. We budgeted $129 million for the year. Company registration fees by exempt companies, as another example, $102 million for the year. Banks and trust licenses, as an example, $27 million for the year. Mutual fund administrators licenses, $44 million, and so forth. Let me just give you a few more. Duty on land transfers, we budgeted $45 million for the year. Minister McTaggart just spoke about tourism accommodation charges. We're budgeted at $36 million for the year. So we know we are going to be keeping an eye on these 24 significant lines of revenue for government and to see how they are tracking vis-a-vis what we had hoped that they would do in the absence of a COVID-19 situation. So we're going to keep an eye on these. They've performed fairly well in most categories for certain financial services to the end of March. But April onwards, we have our eye on these particular individual ones because they are going to make all the difference in the world as to what our revenues are going to look like come the 31st of December, the end of the year. We know we're not going to get $825 million as we had originally set out, and we're going to do our best to, as soon as sensibly possible, to make an estimate as to what those end-of-year revenues could possibly look like. It's really difficult to do that at the moment because there's so much uncertainty about the future. The Economics and Statistics Office, Mr. McTaggart, I hope I'm not stealing your thunder.
No, you go ahead.
They're doing an estimate. They're doing an estimate as to what the impact on our economy would be or will be, and it's primarily based on how many days the Cayman Islands remain closed for business. And as those number of days continue to expand and get larger, the greater the impact. I mean, this is a really obvious point to make. Thus far, we could, I think the latest closure date that I heard from the Honorable Premier, which obviously can change, and he will readily admit that, was perhaps towards the end of May. It can change. And so the Economics and Statistics Office will have a scenario as to what the impact on our economy will be if we were to remain closed until the 31st of May. So as each day goes by, they will know they will estimate what they feel the impact on the economy will be. So we in the Ministry of Finance, in the Treasury in particular, are certainly keeping an eye on both the revenues and expenses. And we obviously have a situation, and Minister McTaggart, you might want to get in on this a bit later. We obviously have a situation where, although we have a number of expenditure areas that were set out in the budget, COVID-19 has resulted in expenditure lines emanating from the fight against the virus, which were never budgeted for, and those are growing. And So the public most recently knows about the cost of the test kit from South Korea, $4.4 million US dollars. So our expenditures are also going to grow beyond what they were budgeted for, and necessarily so because if the government is to assist the public in getting through the effects of the virus, it does actually need to incur expenditure in areas that were never budgeted for. So those are going to change as well. Our budgeted areas expenditure are going to change beyond what was in the original budget.
Okay. As we go to the news break, two things. Jens, are you able to just want to make sure your schedules are okay for a few minutes after our news break? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm good up until about 1:15, 1:30.
Okay. Yeah, so well, thanks for coming for that. And as we asked then, we'll save it till we come back after the break. For those listening, please rejoin us. The Honourable Roy Taggart, our Minister for Public Finance and Economic Development, and Mr. Kenneth Jefferson, the Financial Secretary, are our guests. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only two species that we have, on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
For today's biggest news.
Access to information. Local, regional, international. This is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
Health Minister the Honourable Dwayne Seymour confirms Easter Monday that Cayman is moving to the next stages of its COVID-19 testing. He says a number of frontline groups will be tested, including certain hospital workers, inpatients in the hospitals, and a wider category of people who present with any respiratory symptoms. A number of hospital personnel, however, have already been tested. Cayman purchased 165,000 test kits from South Korea, selling the excess at cost and keeping about 100,000 for the islands. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. World Wrestling Entertainment, WWE, has resumed airing live matches after being deemed an essential service in Florida. New WWE fights were broadcasted on Monday night without a ringside audience. The wrestling company had been airing pre-recorded programs for several weeks, but Florida's Republican governor said live production could continue as an essential function. And Pirates of the Caribbean actor Lee Arenberg says a sixth movie is definitely being discussed. The 57-year-old star who played bumbling pirate Pintel in the original trilogy has not been involved in the franchise since 2007's At the World's End, but he suggested a new film is on the horizon. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
Start getting your debt under control with a debt consolidation loan from Fidelity Bank. At Fidelity, your loan decision is quick with no runaround. Plus, with competitive interest rates and fees, we will help you reduce your monthly payments and get you back to living again. Don't let the burden of overwhelming debt tie you down this year. Call Fidelity today and let's make it happen with a Fidelity Bank debt consolidation loan. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Hello, Cayman. I'm Quincy Brown. Anybody else getting mixed up with all these new coronavirus terms? Me too. But guess what? I've watched the press conferences and I've read the press releases and I've seen all the social media posts. Look here, I can help you out. Essential staff, police officers, immigration, customs, doctors, nurses, first responders, they are essential staff. So if you got to ask, then you ain't. Una got it now? If Una want to stay up to the time with what's going on, there's only one place for the real information, the Cayman Islands government. Visit gov.ky/coronavirus. Now remember, keep washing your hands, keep following the rules, and keep taking care of each other. Saving lives is Caymankind.
Social distancing is crucial for our community to get back to normal. And never before has communication been so crucial. Keeping in touch with family, friends, and up to date requires you to stay in touch. Green Turtle offers the solution for both. Download the Green Turtle app now. Top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination in Cayman. Phones delivered to your home, and with the new rewards program, you can even redeem points towards a new phone and other products. Download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Hashtag Stay Home Cayman. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thanks for joining us, and especially thanks to all of the public servants elected and appointed for, continue to be the stalwarts that they are. On our lines, our guest, the Honourable Roy McTaggart, the Minister for Public Finance and Economic Development, and together with the Financial Secretary, Mr. Kenneth Jefferson. Again, gents, thanks very much for helping us to get a perspective. Just prior to the break, I wanted to ask, as Mr. Jefferson was outlining some of the projected and budgeted revenue areas that we were looking at. If I may, again, we know businesses at times would have sort of business continuity insurance or business interruption insurance. In this instance where government has projected revenues, and by chance have we taken out or able to take out insurance, relatively speaking, how businesses in the private sector could for lost revenues?
I would have to rely on the Financial Secretary to answer that one, Sterling.
Okay.
But I don't think so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. McTaggart. Thank you. Mr. Ebanks, the answer in short terms is no. We don't have insurance to cover a loss of revenue against budgeted numbers by the government. We certainly do not have that.
Mm-hmm.
We have insurance for other aspects of government operations, such as its physical assets, and as well as catastrophes for hurricanes, earthquakes. But we certainly have not attempted to even buy insurance for loss of government's revenues.
Yeah. Respectfully, and we know that many of us in the private sector, in the businesses, we can buy that insurance and we don't for different reasons. So I appreciate you allow me to just ask that, there's a consideration. But equally, we were talking about the impact on our economy and our GDP. I think we've seen reports of the UK that potentially $3 billion, I don't know what numbers in pounds, 2-point-something billion pounds a day is their projected loss, or impact on the economy. You were referenced into the Economics and Statistics Office. Here was local, doing something similar. Any preliminary numbers as to what that may be on a daily basis or even annualized or anything as yet?
FS, you have any of those figures? Estimates?
Not precise ones. What I can do is to speak in certain general terms.
Yes, sir.
And to say that if you were to force me, right now to guess what the impact would be. Again, as I said previously, the impact depends upon how long the country remains closed. If we were talking of the country remaining closed until the end of May, then our estimate as to what would happen to the economy for that length of time would be a contraction, decrease in the size of the economy in the region of easily 8 to 10%. It might even be more, but certainly 8 to 10% if we were closed until the end of May. The longer we go out in terms of closure, the greater the impact. I'd obviously decrease in the size of the economy, which is what a contraction is. it has devastating impacts on particularly what's important to people is our jobs. As the economy gets smaller, there are less and less jobs available. It also has consequences too on inflation as well. But that would be my answer now. If we thought that the islands were going to reopen around the end of May, I would say you're looking at a 8 to 10% contraction. But there has to be considerable flexibility in those types of estimates.
And Mr. Minister?
If I could just add to that, Sterling, I did find some estimates here that were done a couple of weeks ago by the ESO when this was first rearing its head, and when we first did the lockdown. And the estimate at that time was for contraction in the economy of 5.3%. But that was based on these presumptions. The airports being closed for 3 weeks. We're already past that. Seaports closed for 60 days. We know they're not coming back anytime soon. 2 weeks closure of the bars, gyms, spas, beauty salons, and public swimming pools. We're well past that. Restrictions on the restaurants and the closure of all non-essential businesses for 24 days. But I mean, all of those assumptions that they use to develop that estimate of 5.3% contraction are just out the window. So the numbers that FS is talking about at this point, they'd be more likely to 8-10%. I would personally suggest too, they could even be more than that.
Exactly.
And let's remember too that were initially forecasting, I think, a GDP growth for this year of 3.2%. So the actual swing in terms of economic activity is quite significantly more than that, than 8 to 10% contraction, because we were growing quite robustly for the first 3 months of the year actually, and that's all come to a halt.
And I hope as people look at it, if we were to say, just as an argument, say that it's a dollar a day, it doesn't mean that at the end of the year it would be $365. It could be that as you get to month 2, there's an exponential growth there, impact, so that it could be annualized at less or more as you're sharing. With that employment, are we looking at potentially any sort of impact on the budget in relation to expenses, not just directly related to COVID and the costs for security, the costs and the other things that are immediately correlated to this pandemic? But what about other claims for assistance and employment and other things? Are there areas where we're seeing increased sort of ask for assistance?
I don't have that information to hand. I think you're thinking more of, from the, social assistance.
Well, from there, FS?
I mean, we know that there are increased demands there.
Yeah.
I'm guessing. Go ahead, FS.
Okay. No, I said, thank you. I have some brief details. And these would relate to measures that the government has already put in place. They might not have quite been exhausted as yet, but certainly put in place. So, as an example, the persons that receive temporary financial assistance from the government, they can apply. They can be asked to be assessed for a special stipend to cover, say, 3 months of living expenses. I saw the detailed analysis of the cost of rent, electricity, water, and food vouchers, for example. And the estimate was $2,215 per month of living expense for 3 months for 311 households would, if they were all successful in their assessments and applications that they really needed that, those would amount to $2.1 million. That's over and above what we'd planned to do before. I think the government has also said that, it would, because it's in good interest of public safety, etc., to assist even persons who were not Caymanians, who were residents. would support them temporarily through these difficult times, and the estimate I saw was around $2 million for that. The seamen and the veterans, as another example, they'd received an extra stipend, half of their usual stipend, which would amount to $425. Their usual stipend is $850 per month. So the government has already given seamen and veterans an extra $425 in March, at the end of March, and for almost 2,000 seamen and veterans, that was another almost $1 million. And we know that the Ministry of Education also is going to assist taxi drivers, minibus drivers, or 15-seater buses, those involved in water sports and so forth, with a special one-off, a stipend. Didn't say one-off, a stipend of $600. And I think the expectation, and again, there's an application process to go through, and the latest cost on that I saw was around $225,000, and possibly it might end up with 1,000 persons applying, and if that occurred, that would be $600,000. So the government has done and continues to do a lot for individuals, and also for micro and small businesses. There are a number of programs that have come forward and have been announced by the government in recent times. The most significant of which is the grant program to micro and small businesses, provided they can get through certain criteria. And that amount, from memory, is around $9 million. So the government has really put forward some significant assistance to the public, to individual and to businesses. I know that the government also plans to help the farmers as well with their supplies, their feed, etc. during these difficult times. I don't think I'm able to say the amount, but it is substantial. Can't say it because it hasn't been approved by cabinet.
No, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, what I would add to that, in addition to what FS was saying, in terms of assistance to small and micro businesses, the actual amount is $14 million, because you have to the $9 million that he mentioned. There's also the $5 million potential loans that are available for small and micro and small businesses available. So quite a bit of resources being made available to businesses just to assist them once they can get up and running.
Well, what would appear evident as you calculated that is a lot of money in the short term, sort of as an interim measure. And I think it bodes well to the initial points you were making, that the country was put on a good footing, at least in the first quarter, in relation to the projected surplus, its managed expenses and the like. But from the listening public, then we should see that the government's approach is all in sunder, from the work permit holder who is here and unemployed, being able to access some assistance, to those who need extra assistance through housing and social programs, to the businesses. So it is an all-encompassing approach.
Yeah, and you have to look at it that way as a government, Sterling. Otherwise you get into situations where certain segments might stagnate and while others are successful. Mm-hmm. You have to look at the economy as a whole and make sure that everyone gets uplifted as much as you're able to do so.
If I could then maybe look at it not so much from finance, but mostly from, say, economics, and with that I try to get people to say that accountants and financial experts like to look at the dollars and cents, and the economists like to look at the social implications as well as the financial. If we then, and it's not a numerical number, but then if we as a populace were to say make our actions much better, so reducing the cost of policing, for argument's sake, if we were to do things collectively, we could conceivably see a knock-on positive benefit to the expenditures and outlays of our government, not having to have so many police on shift, manning roadblocks, not have to incur in certain things because of us being the public behavior. could that correlate into financial savings if we were to do what we're supposed to do as a people? Be where we're supposed to be, not be where we're not supposed to be?
Well, I think there's a lot of truth to that, personally. When I look at all the resources that the police are having to invest to make sure that people comply now with the requirements and the lockdown provisions. Can you imagine if everyone just simply complied, then there wouldn't be a need for all of these resources. I mean, I shudder when I think of the amount of time that the helicopters having to be out patrolling the skies. I mean, it's comforting, it's reassuring, but there's a huge cost associated with that. Mm-hmm. There's a huge cost associated with all of the policemen being out, and other first responders being out as well, helping and doing everything that they can do to keep our roads and our people safe.
Indeed. FS, did you? If not, I was going to ask. And then there's also the cost, for argument's sake, if we could be back up and running in 2 weeks or 2 months, as opposed to 6 months or 12 months, because we keep pushing the timeline back because of certain endeavors on our part. They can have corresponding consequences, and that's what I was trying to get at earlier. If we were saying the UK's example of 3 billion a day, if they were open for 10 days earlier, that's 10 times 3, savings, $30 billion in savings, that the economy wouldn't be hit. Likewise, it could be the same for us.
Well, I think there's a danger. Go ahead, FS.
No, you go ahead, Minister.
Well, I was just going to say, that there's a danger there in just saying if you open it up that, it's a immediate savings of 30 billion or whatever it is.
Yes.
Because it just doesn't all come back immediately, and it would take time to rebuild. That's just the reality and the way it is going to be.
No, agreed. I guess I was just trying to share that if we as a people were to do our part, then the sooner we can do this without having to incur the expense. I mean, you have 5 police officers, checking a roadblock, for argument's sake, when people are out and about unnecessarily. That's an expense that could be avoided if we were a little bit more civil, a little bit more cooperative in that sense.
Absolutely.
Anyway, FS, sir?
Yeah, I certainly would agree with what you've said, Mr. Ebanks. I mean, I make an obvious point to the public to say that there are other costs that we haven't even spoken much about on the shows thus far. And as an example, the cost of isolating persons, in hotels, the government is actually going to incur that cost, and we've been fortunate enough that the private sector, as best of my knowledge, has afforded those facilities to government at cost and didn't necessarily look to make a profit out of the situation. But there's the accommodation cost of housing persons. The persons obviously have to be fed. Again, it's the cost that the government picks up. The cost of transportation to and from those facilities. The cost of security. If we need to hire a security firm to watch over, some of those areas, that's an additional cost. So there are lots of costs that arise, and I'm sure I've missed a few as well, that we wouldn't ordinarily even think about, that are actually happening as we speak.
And thank you for sharing that, because I think that we start to look at it. We could probably on a very individual basis in our households maybe look at some of our own expenses that have increased, or new expenses that we've incurred that we didn't budget for, whether we did it on paper or whether we just did it mentally, because every month we have these recurring expenditures, but maybe they have now increased because we're home more or we're not there. Likewise with our government, which means us as a people will eventually be paying those. It isn't that this government is this invisible entity. Honourable Minister, if I could ask then, again, just for clarity, we've heard the Commerce Minister, we just heard the Financial Secretary reference that the expenditure from the Education Ministry for the taxes and the tour and the water sports. At the end of the day, these funds, whether they come from the vote from one ministry to the next, are all coming out of government. Is that how it is, or is it something separate now within the system?
No, absolutely. I mean, they are coming out of the government treasury. I mean, we have to fund these things, and make sure that we take care of and give as much impetus as we can to the economy and to people and to the businesses to help keep them going and keep things operating.
Then with that,
absolutely, this is coming straight out of the treasury.
Okay, with that, with our statutory authorities and even with core government and the like, we know that there are a lot of expenses. We know there's a degree because of the new regime under which we operate, that entities can have some degree of autonomy. But is there an undertaking to ensure, whether it's the Health Services Authority or any of the other statutory authorities, that all expenditures know at some point, if nothing more than for audit purposes down the road, to say, listen, these were our expenses during these times, these were our revenues, so that we can be able to tabulate and say, you know what, this whole exercise ended up costing us this, if nothing more than just a historical record. Is that being ensured?
FS can give a more fulsome reply, but I know within the central and core government, we are able to track those expenditures. And I would say on behalf, and venture even further and say in the case of HSA, these costs are quite likely going to be very substantial.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would be reported, when they make their annual reports, and those numbers would be identified. So we should have a fair idea of what the actual costs are.
I mean, that's absolutely correct, Minister McTaggart. As you know, within central government itself, the Treasury has issued out to the rest of the central government, asking that they attach a particular project code number to the expenditures that relate to COVID, and it is the use of that project code number that's attached to such expenditures that would enable us to tabulate at the end of the financial year, even before, expenditures that have been incurred specifically because of COVID. And Ms. Ebanks, you're right. You're absolutely right that the statutory authorities, particularly I would say the HSA, is incurring quite a bit of costs connected with their fight and their assistance in COVID. So the cost is also going to be incurred by statutory authorities as well as central government in this fight against the virus.
Well, I certainly, if you'd permit me just to ask one final question, and of course you can share anything else, but Honourable Minister, you referenced earlier, and I think it's worth repeating, that Moody's has, confirmed a rating which is significant to us. With that in mind, though, it is early days, but any consideration as to whether we'll be looking at increasing borrowings, a year from now, 9 months from now, 6 months from now?
Yeah. Sterling, what I'd say at this point is that there is no immediate need or even medium-term need for us to consider that. But it certainly is a very viable option for us. Should the worst case scenario unfold before us, that we do have that flexibility and capability. Now, I mentioned the rating. It would stand us well in terms of, setting whatever the borrowing costs are likely to be. But it also means with that rating that banks are keen to lend to Cayman. We are a good credit risk, and so it should not be an impediment to us. It'll be a help to us if we find ourselves in that position that we need to borrow, that we will be able to do so at very good rates.
Mm-hmm. FS?
Just as again for a tidbit of information for the public's benefit, at the end of March, the central government's debt balance was in the region of approximately $280 million. So it's a relatively low number, and obviously that number will keep decreasing as the government makes its loan repayments and loan obligations. So at the end of March, the central government's debt balance was in the region of $280 $180 million, so quite low.
And I presume then, given, looking at it from the individual perspective, where banks are saying to its customers, we can defer your mortgage payments, and then government at this stage is continuing to make its payments and continues to plan to do so going forward.
Yeah,
absolutely. No, go ahead.
Sorry, sir. I just wanted to very quickly, coming behind what I just said about the debt being very low. I don't want that to plant an idea in person's head in the public that the government is keen to go out and borrow wholesale. I think Mr. McTaggart had just made it very clear that there isn't a pressing immediate need to do it. The government is obviously in a position where if it needs to, it will pursue it. But because it has a low existing debt balance now, it doesn't mean that it's an incentive to go out and borrow more. Because we still have those dreaded, or if you like them, the FFR, the fiscal for
the framework for fiscal responsibility.
Yeah, those ratios still exist, and they're quite restrictive, and we need to take account of those as well. So I just wanted to make that point that although our debt absolute number is low, it doesn't mean that the government is going to be reckless in its activities. It's going to maintain its prudence that it has done all along.
Absolutely.
Indeed. Well, I was just, and I thank you for sharing that, and I'm hopeful that people, no matter how mischievous or malicious we may be, did not misconstrue that. If anything, I would hope that we would look at it and say, if it's only, a couple of dollars, some of us have more than that in our net worth. It's only $280 million. 280 of us, put together a couple of dollars, we could pay it off in no time at all. Maybe this is a time for us as a people to buy our country by physically investing into its future and shore up the government, put forward the programs that we need. But just a thought, right?
Yeah.
Honourable Minister, any closing thoughts? And again, thanks to both of you, but any closing thoughts you may want to share with us, sir?
Well, I just certainly like to conclude by reminding the public where we are right now. And we're in that period where it's all about the well-being and safety of our people. That's where we are, trying to keep people alive and well. There will come a time when the COVID virus will basically burn itself out, and we will be able to reopen the economy and get things and economic activity restored and growing. It is going to require a lot of resources from the government, and while we don't have a lot of clarity at this point as to where we will be at the end of this, we do know that we will emerge from it. It's that old proverbial light at the end of the tunnel. That's just turned off right now, and we can't see through that yet. But I do know that there's light at the end of it, and we will see it. So we will see it at some point.
Amen.
So I want to, just to reassure the public as well that, the government is taking prudent steps and taking very careful and considered decisions, and we will continue to manage the affairs of the country in a way that we always have. The fact that we are faced with a challenge here with this crisis doesn't mean we change and abandon all the principles that have made us as successful as we have been over the last 6 to 8 years. They stood us well, and they can still withstand us through this crisis. And we will always provide that, seeking what is best for the country, and making sure that we obtain value for money in all that we do, and that we give this country the best opportunity that we can to ensure that it succeeds and that life can return to a normal, whether that is a normal that is different from what we had before, but in any way, life can settle down and we can all be about our business again.
Amen. Thank you very much, Honourable Minister and Mr. Financial Secretary. Thank you, sir. Any other thoughts you may want to leave, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Sterling. I just want to say that I hope that Minister McTaggart and I, appearing on the program today, have provided the public with some useful information. We trust that it it's been understandable and helpful, and reassuring that the government will do what it can to assist the public in getting through a very difficult period now. And we trust that has been accomplished by our presence this afternoon, albeit a phone-in presence, and that they have gained something from the information that we have imparted.
Well, thank you both, and I think it has been, and certainly the invitation is always there to you individually, but certainly your presence collectively is always a wonderful experience. So I trust and pray that you and your families will continue to be safe, and that you'll find a path ahead of you to be, very rosy and robust. So, gents, have a blessed week.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you too, Sterling, and thank you for hosting us.
Indeed, sir. Yeah. All right, going to pause and take a break. I think Miss Susan is looking forward to sharing that chocolate with me. All right, well, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Social distancing is crucial for our community to get back to normal. And never before has communication been so crucial. Keeping in touch with family, friends, and up-to-date requires you to stay in touch. Green Turtle offers the solution for both. Download the Green Turtle app now. Top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination in Cayman. Phones delivered to your home, and with the new rewards program, you can even redeem points towards a new phone and other products. Download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Hashtag Stay Home Cayman. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
When you've got boxed in your freezer, there's no need to stress. Just heat it up, cause we've done the rest. Get boxed, it's local. Get boxed, it's tasty. Get boxed, it's easy. Get boxed.
Boxed meals are available in the freezer aisle at all major supermarkets, or stay at home and take advantage of their free home delivery with any order of $100. Visit boxed.ky for the full menu. Order at wholesale at catering.ky or call 326-3937.
Preventing dengue is as simple as preventing mosquito bites. Use a mosquito repellent, wear protective clothing, and stay indoors during early dawn and dusk when mosquitoes are most active. Control the places around you where mosquitoes breed. Remove stagnant water in outdoor and household settings. As a weekly habit, persons should change the water in vases, clear the water in saucers under potted plants, and ensure air conditioner drip trays are free of stagnant water. Outdoor objects capable of holding water should be kept empty and preferably disposed of or put into dry storage if not used. These include open bottles and tins, watering cans, buckets, empty paint tins, and old vehicle tires. Do your part to control the spread of dengue. The dengue virus is an infectious disease transmitted through mosquito bites. Symptoms may come on as early as 4 days or as late as 3 weeks following an infection. There is no vaccine or specific medication to treat dengue. Symptoms of dengue include high fever, headache, pain behind the eyes, joint and muscle pain, and rash. If persons have any of these symptoms, they should go to the nearest health center or hospital. It is advised to drink lots of liquids and avoid medication that contains aspirin.
A public service announcement from Radio Cayman. Coronavirus prevention tip. What is coronavirus? The novel coronavirus, COVID-19, is a new strain of coronavirus that has not been previously identified in humans. What are the symptoms? Common symptoms include respiratory symptoms of fever, cough, shortness of breath, breathing difficulties. In severe cases, coronavirus can cause pneumonia, severe acute respiratory syndrome, and kidney failure. How soon do symptoms occur? Symptoms occur 2 to 10 days after a person has been exposed. Is there a vaccine against coronavirus? Currently, there is no vaccine to protect against COVID-19. When a disease is new, it takes up to a few years for a new vaccine to be developed. For information, you can email questions to flu@hsa.ky or call one of the hotline numbers of 1-800-534-8600 or 947-3077. For the latest updates and information, please visit hsa.ky/coronavirus. The Cayman Islands government would like to remind the public that e-services are available for vehicle license renewal, trade and business licensing, police clearance, and other transactions. Skip the line and apply online. E-services are user-friendly, efficient, and most important, you can apply and pay from the comfort of your home. Visit eservices.gov.ky.
Hello, K-Man. I'm Quincy Brown. Anybody else getting mixed up with all these new coronavirus terms? Me too. But guess what? I've watched the press conferences and I've read the press releases and I've seen all the social media posts. Look here, I can help you out. Social distancing. Well, that means you're to keep a distance of 3 to 6 feet away from the person next to you. Or in layman's term, if you can see the color of the eye next to you, you're too close. Una got it now? If Una want to stay up to the time with what's going on, there's only one place for the real information, the Cayman Islands government. Visit gov.ky/coronavirus. Now remember, keep washing your hands, keep following the rules, and keep taking care of each other. Saving lives is K-Mankind.
Start getting your debt under control with a debt consolidation loan from Fidelity Bank. At Fidelity, your loan decision is quick with no runaround. Plus, with competitive interest rates and fees, we will help you reduce your monthly payments and get you back to living again. Don't let the burden of overwhelming debt tie you down this year. Call Fidelity today and let's make it happen with a Fidelity Bank debt consolidation loan. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thanks for joining us. And again, a special thanks to the Honorable Roy Taggart, the Minister for Public Finance and Economic Development, together with the Financial Secretary, Mr. Kenneth Jefferson, for joining us. We're expecting now to be able to join via the phone the President of the Cayman Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Woody Foster, and the CEO at the Chamber, Mr. Will Pano. Sometimes, when we got Miss Susan working left, right, and center all day and night, but she's going to get us up. So we managed to connect up with Mr. Foster. We'll have Mr. Pano hopefully up shortly. Good afternoon, Mr. Foster. How are you, sir?
Fantastic, Dwayne. How are you today?
Blessed and thankful. And our apologies if we, dialed numbers and they seem to have gone elsewhere. But I'm glad that we were able to connect with you.
No problem, man. Always happy to be here.
Okay, and we will have Mr. Pano up shortly, I believe. And as we're dialing the numbers up. It's interesting, but again, I trust and pray that you, your families, as well as your, colleagues and staff are all safe and well.
That we are aware of. So we hope that doesn't change.
Amen. Amen. And again, thanks for coming on and sharing. We recognize that commerce and business and the Chamber of Commerce in particular has been instrumental thus far. You've been able to share with us from time to time some of the things that are transpiring. From the Chamber's perspective, we would like to invite you to maybe give us an update, give us a perspective of the businesses, how you see things going relative to the economy, the functioning of certain sectors as we get into our discussion.
Well, I don't think there's very much functioning of pretty much any sector. I suppose mine is probably one of the very few that is functioning. So I would hazard a guess that most sectors are in pretty poor shape. So as businesses try to figure out how they're going to keep their staff employed, while trying to figure out, how long this is going to last. So I think really the trick is between the private sector and the public sector figuring out how we're going to balance. And I've got to be really careful with my words here because this always seems to get misconstrued as businesses care more about profits than they do about lives, which could not be further from the truth. But We have to figure out how we're going to save every life in Cayman while figuring out a way to get the economy going in a safe and constructive way so that we have no loss of life. That is the absolute goal. And if there's a risk of losing a life, then the decision should be don't do it, right? So I don't believe that we can take the approach of I'm going to do one, and when I'm finished with that one, then I'll start thinking about the other. And of course, what you would be meaning is that I'm going to save lives, and when that part is over, then we'll start figuring out how to get the economy going. I don't know that we have that luxury. We really have to figure out a way to do them both at the same time.
If the listening public following the press briefing, sometimes I've got a sense from just comments, generally speaking, that the listening public, coming away from the press briefings, sometimes are left with the perception that the private sector looking more, but let's get back on the road, let's get businesses open, let's get things going again. People need work, they need to cash their paychecks, they need to be able to do this. Is there a sense that that's different from what you're sharing, that as you said, life first, but it would seem that from some, the perception is that the businesses want to, well, let's put business first.
But I mean, what isn't a business? I mean, at the end of the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, your household is a business. It takes money to run your household, right? Your household doesn't run on love alone. You still need to pay your bills. You need to go out to work to bring income in. So at the end of the day, what isn't a business? And at the end of the day, it takes money to make it all work. Whether you're like a government that doesn't necessarily need to show a profit or your business that does need to show a profit, it still takes economics to make it all work, right? So we can't just simply believe that the government is so amazing that we'll be able to stay in a holding pattern of nobody working for weeks or months on end, and the government will just come up with some magic stimulus package that's going to make everything okay. I mean, I don't think that's rational. Now, I don't know what was said on the segment before with the minister, and unfortunately, I'm really sorry that I wasn't able to catch that. So hopefully, I'm not speaking out of turn with what they said. But I mean, at the end of the day, whether people are put back to work or government comes up with a stimulus so that they can stay home, it's still going to take money. Somebody's going to have to do it. So we need to figure out what that means. And if the government cannot afford to do it, well, then what does that mean? So at the end of the day, it's the public sector and the private sector working together to keep this economy safe and alive while finding out a strategy that allows us to do that by paying our bills, keeping our people fed, and keeping them healthy. That is what we have to do. So in simplistic terms, that's what needs to happen. Now, there's nothing simplistic about that. That takes a lot of work and a lot of effort from a lot of people. It's all hands on deck. In my opinion, I think a big part of the success of coming out of this and getting people to work safely is massive testing. Now, I see on CNS where that's going to soon happen. So do we have enough test kits to do that? Because it doesn't mean doing everybody gets one test and, okay, well, we're finished with it, right? It takes multiple tests. So we need to make sure we have enough tests. We have to make sure that we have enough equipment to do the tests, like swabs and reagents and all the rest of it. We have to make sure that the labs can actually handle it. Do we need to bring in telemedicine or robotics to do the actual testing, since human resources can't do it in a efficient manner? So there's so many things that we need to talk about that we would need to put in place to make sure that business could go back to at least functioning, because it's not about making businesses profitable. It's about getting people back to work, right? So if we're going to use the businesses to put people back to work so that we can get them paid, that's much more efficient than government coming up with a way to giving people a check. Like, how would government do that? We don't pay taxes, so government doesn't know where everybody is. How would everybody have to stand up in line at NAU to get some kind of a check? It would seem highly inefficient, right? So businesses are already set up to pay people. So it would, it seems more functional for either, whether it's a stimulus package or we put people back to work. Businesses need to be included because it's just more efficient.
All right, we certainly want you to continue, but we also have the CEO of the Chamber, Mr. Will Panu. Mr. Panu, thanks for joining us. Our apologies for taking a second to dial the right number. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Hi, good afternoon.
As President Foster was sharing your perspective as the CEO of the Chamber and is looking at the feedback from the Chamber membership and the like, what is this strategy? What is this sort of recovery or return to normalcy going to look like?
Well, obviously, it's going to take different aspects, many aspects in terms of getting certain areas of the economy back up and running, and it's going to take a plan. And I think what Woody was talking about is the whole idea of us coming together, the public and private sector, to develop, the strategies to get us back up and running in some way. Obviously, the government's whole idea, certainly keeping people's saving people's lives and making sure the curfew is active and effective is actually the right thing to do at this time. But we should also be looking at when we do have some control of the spread of this virus and hopefully containment, that we have a plan in place going forward. And I think that's where the discussion has to start. The numbers of people who are going to be impacted by this, both businesses and workers, is significant. And as Woody's pointed out, not everyone's going to be able to get direct government assistance from this. So we've got to kind of put that plan in place and maybe make sure it's there so that when the decision is taken to open the economy up in whatever way, we are ready to pull the switch.
Now, with that, we were looking initially at there were some on one side of the coin in relation to the population needs to increase. Others were saying, well, we probably need to get infrastructure in place before we can handle any more. Others were saying, wait a minute, we've got too many now. With where we are and with possible projections down the road, Mr. Foster, your take. The population is sustainable. Do we need to, when we get back to that point, have it increase? Do we look at a reduction? What would be your thought process given the investments?
I'm really sorry, Dwayne, you broke up. Could you just ask the question again?
Yeah, sure. I was asking in relation, well, first off, are you able to hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. In relation to our population in terms of supporting our businesses, expansion and reopening and the like, there was some prior to this exercise beyond believing that we need to continue to increase and grow our population. Some were saying, well, let's wait till we improve our infrastructure to be able to accommodate it. And then there were those who were thinking, well, we were a little bit too much now. We can't, handle it. Your take on that as we move forward in relation to our population?
That is a very interesting question in this environment.
Mm-hmm. And you're an interesting person to answer it, man.
Well, we've obviously had a population decrease, leading up to where we are now. In my opinion, I think we're going to have a further decrease as we sort of figure out this economy, because when we do open it up, it's going to be open up as a domestic economy without any inward investment, without any people coming into the island from a tourism perspective. So it's just the money that's here. It's going to be circulating around. So we're more than likely going to lose another part of the population, whatever that number may be. So it's going to take us some time, to get our economy back up on its feet to where we're sort of, functioning again. And then when we're in a position to open the economy to air travel, again, that's not by magic just going to get up and going. It's going to take time for people to actually feel comfortable to travel, for them to build up savings in which to actually even take a vacation. So it's going to take a while for us to get anywhere remotely close, in my opinion, to where we were prior to February or March, right? Because, our economy was super hot leading up to this. So we were doing amazing. And as you say, everybody was concerned that we were going too fast, getting too many people. So I don't think we're going to have that problem for a little while. Now, there are major construction projects that are going to be in the way. The DART Corporation has said that they're going to continue to keep their big construction projects going, which is good news, I believe, for our economy. I know people will obviously have different feelings on that, but it'll definitely help keep the economy going. And when the island opens back up to travel, hopefully we'll be ready for that. Now, how do I feel about the economy going to 100,000 people? As an individual, as a Caymanian who remembers what it used to be like, I'm a bit nervous about that. However, I'm not overly scared of it. But if I'm remembering my time as a boy, and whether I would prefer the fast-paced 100 to 150,000 people as opposed to the sleepier village of the 70s and 80s, I suppose as an individual, I would prefer the sleepier village. But I don't know that we're going to necessarily have that choice, because, again, I believe that we set things in motion from back in the early 60s in saying that we want the financial industry, and this is what we're going to do. We set things in motion from the 60s that have set us on a path that has taken us to amazing heights. To just all of a sudden now decide that we don't want that anymore, I'm not sure that we could really stop that without making some drastic things which would then hurt the economy. So having said all of that, I believe what we need to do is we need to work on a sustainability plan that allows for a growth rate at a number that we are happy to grow with, as opposed to just leaving it up to market forces to just happen on its own. I don't really like that, and I think that between the government and the private sector, we should have a better plan of a sustainable growth as opposed to just free-for-all growth. That scares me.
Indeed.
If that answers your question.
It does indeed. Before I ask a supplementary, Mr. Pinot, you wish to weigh in?
No, I think everything that Mr. Foster said is accurate. I mean, the Chamber has been advocating the development of these types of plans, national plans, for some time. It goes back as far as 15 years ago. We launched various initiatives in partnership with the government over that time. And reality is we have a consumption-based economy, and reality is times like the crisis that we're going through now, and you just had the Honorable Minister and the Financial Secretary on, we're a service-based economy. When the demand for our services are not there, or tourism is impacted in a particular way, as well as foreign investment, we can clearly see the dip in our government revenues. Thankfully, over the course of several years, the economy has been managed, the budget has been managed, fairly well. So we're in a kind of a decent financial picture. But this crisis has really probably shaken things up for us a bit, and everybody's going to have to kind of rethink the business model a little bit. I mean, think about businesses that were all depending on tourism. And the likelihood that the tourism product is not going to reopen for several months. Those are Caymanians that have to reconsider what they're doing in terms of their business, and whether they can transition to something else that's more useful in this current environment. So this crisis has really kind of forced us to evaluate everything, including, as I said earlier in the conversation, 6 months ago we were talking about the whole issue of that you mentioned, the $100,000 population growth question, and now here we are. We're getting people on planes to be repatriated to their homelands, and we're reducing probably the number of jobs for the first time in more than 3 decades in our country.
No, with that in mind, from the Chamber's perspective, are you getting any sort of reports as to businesses that may not reopen, or B, that if they do, it's going to be in a different format? Any sort of numbers, surveys, or anything that you have thus far?
We're in the process of compiling it. We've done a membership survey already. And again, I think at the initial stage of this crisis, businesses were in a holding pattern until really when the curfews and the lockdowns came into point. And, they were kind of in a holding pattern to see if the economy would ultimately reopen. But now it appears that this is going to be extended even further. Many of these businesses are cash dependent on, customers coming into their stores and everything else. So at the end of the day, they're definitely going to, some of them are already announced that they're not reopening. You have to think about the tourism industry. Can any business survive not having tourists for 6 months or longer? So all of the business models, have been completely shifted. And what we're doing at the Chamber is trying to help some of these businesses to retrench, trying to provide them with information that could be useful to them in terms of their employees. We're doing webinars, which will provide information for the members. On Friday, what we're doing is in association with the Cayman Islands Center for Business Development, we're doing a webinar that the businesses, anybody can call in and try to find out more information about the $14 million assistance package that government has put forward for micro and small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
This is a brave new world. In my 30-plus years in being Cayman, I've never seen such a situation in our country. I mean, even Hurricane Ivan was a challenge. We all faced that, and even the global slowdown. But we've never had a situation where we've had to completely close down an economy which is so dependent on visitors and foreign investment.
Right. Gents, we have the news. We also have the press briefing. If you have time, we can play it by ear, take the news, and then come back. And if we got a minute, we chat some more and go from there. Would you want to do that?
Sure.
Okay. Well, stay tuned.
Your 2 p.m. headlines brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have, on Island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice.
For today's biggest news.
Access to information.
Local, regional, international. This is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
The Civil Service Wellness Committee is providing support and information with an action-packed set of webinars for civil servants this week. Today, the committee brought HSA doctors online to answer COVID-19 questions, but the series also includes a number of other topics, from creating habits that work for you to best practices for couples in quarantine. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines. In news elsewhere, authorities from Cuba's rural municipality of Camajuani in central Villa Clara province, where 18 positive COVID-19 cases have been reported, are on the alert and have reinforced health measures to curb the epidemic. According to statistics, 55.56% of infected patients are under 18 years of age in Camajuani, which is 25 kilometers from the provincial capital, Santa Clara, which has a population of more than 163,000 and is famous for its carnivals. And the global economy will contract by 3% this year as countries around the world shrink at the fastest pace in decades, the International Monetary Fund says. The IMF described the global decline as the worst since the Great Depression of the 1930s. It said the pandemic has plunged the world into a crisis like no other. The fund added that a prolonged outbreak would test the ability of governments and central banks to control the crisis. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
For nearly 20 years, King Sports Center has been the heart of the Cayman fitness and wellness community. In order to ensure the welfare of all, we are temporarily closed until further notified by the Cayman Islands government that it is safe to reopen. During these trying times, we encourage everyone to maintain a healthy lifestyle, mind, body, and soul. We look forward to continuing providing you with world-class service in the very near future. Remain strong and continue to show the world the power of Cayman unity. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
Your 2 p.m. headlines brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
Social distancing is crucial for our community to get back to normal. And never before has communication been so crucial. Keeping in touch with family, friends, and up to date requires you to stay in touch. Green Turtle offers the solution for both. Download the Green Turtle app now. Top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination in Cayman. Phones delivered to your home, and with the new rewards program, you can even redeem points towards a new phone and other products. Download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Hashtag Stay Home Cayman. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
Did you know that ValueMed Pharmacy has a free online prescription service? Managing your health and medical requirements has never been easier with ValueMed. Simply visit value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com and click the Refill Prescriptions tab on our website. Fill in the information for new prescriptions or refills and choose your preferred pickup location, ValueMed on Walkers Road or Town. Then bring in your original prescription from your doctor when picking up. There's no need to stand in line and wait for your prescription. Save time and pick up prescriptions at your convenience by visiting value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com.
Digicel is all about giving customers more convenience, more peace of mind, and more flexibility. Do more with the new My Digicel app. Buy plans, pay your bill, track your credit, track your data, and monitor your account. It's easy to use and has everything you need in one place. It's time to simplify your life, so go ahead and see for yourself. Download the new My Digicel app today. More made simple.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Just a quick reminder that we're waiting for the daily press briefing, and we'll go to that momentarily when it starts. But on our phones, our guests, President Woody Foster of the Cayman Chamber of Commerce, and the CEO, Mr. Will Pano. Gents, thanks for holding on. And as it is shared, if the press conference starts, we may just quickly, interrupt our conversation and go straight to that. But in the meantime, let's continue chatting.
Sure.
All right. Hey, thanks very much for joining us. Now, before I ask perhaps another question, is there anything else you may want to share with us as we're going to the break?
No, I guess ask your questions and answer them as best we can.
All right, thanks. We did, as you had shared, Mr. Foster, we weren't unable to hear when the Honourable Public Finance Minister, Mr. McTaggart, was on with the Financial Secretary. But he did share that, government's revenues obviously depend on, sort of import duties, tourism-related revenues from accommodation tax and the like. So with the businesses being shuttered now and the impact that could have not just on employment but government revenues, from the private sector's perspective, two things. One, do we have any idea of what the cost, the financial cost to date or the projected cost if this thing continues?
Well, I don't think that I would be qualified to give that number, but I'm sure we could get that from people like the ESO. I've heard lots of numbers in my discussions, from 150 million a month to, there's all kinds of numbers out there, but I wouldn't want to throw that out there and just create, because if you get it wrong, you'll get a lot of people pointing that out. So again, as part of developing a plan is to go out and get the information from the ESO and any other private sector businesses that could support that information, and then determine what is it you need to do with that, because the cost of dealing with this crisis is incredible. You just look at the test kits alone. which is not the full cost of the test kits, because that $4 million price tag, I don't believe included all the other ancillary costs that went into actually getting them here.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't include the other items that go along with that, and then of course there's the cost of administering those tests and doing all the rest of it. You saw the amount of money that the government, we'll call it small stimulus package, a week ago. How long ago was that? A week ago, 10 days ago or something? How many $1 million that was, and that didn't even scratch the surface. So in terms of to do a major, if the government were to do a major stimulus package to help, again, we're not going to say businesses be profitable, but to help pay payroll so that people can continue to eat and live, that would be a huge bill, a big number.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was explaining in another meeting that I had today, just the cost of government supplying all of their essential workers at the hospital, at the police, and all of the various places with N95 masks or whatever mask it is that they're using, that number is monumental. Because I know we're looking at bringing in some masks for the hospital because they're trying to get it for everybody. We're talking about a landed cost without, that's probably, I think it's around $2 a mask. And they're looking for 500,000 masks. Simple math. That's just a mask. That's no gloves. That's no sanitizer. That's no face shields. That's none of the other equipment that they need. So the price tag on getting through this crisis is huge. It is monumental.
No, I would certainly agree with you that the Economics and Statistics Office can collate the data. Government can sort of look at its own resources and come up with a number. But I was wondering within the private sector through the Chamber of Commerce whether they had as yet sort of got any kind of feedback from its own members. Well, this is how we're being affected, on a daily basis or on a cumulative basis. This is the cost to us. So nothing like that yet has been.
Okay. No. Well, we'll just put out a survey. I think yesterday, Will.
Yeah, it's about yesterday we started. This is the second survey since the crisis has started.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's early. Remember, we're March is when this started, so we're about a month in, right? Is it a little over a month?
Mm-hmm.
So everybody probably would have gotten paid at the end of March. Where the rubber begins meeting the road is at the end of April and May, right? Because obviously that's when businesses were really closed, and so it ramps up. I mean, I'm getting requests, obviously with the webinars we did, people are evaluating their head count in their organizations, their staff levels, particularly those businesses that are affected by tourism. You can actually just think about it yourself, right? I mean, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure out that when all the hotels are closed down, well, some of our larger hotels have as many as 400, 500 staff or more working in them. Think about all those employees not getting a paycheck or getting a reduced paycheck at the end of the month, or just their severance packages because they're not going to be open. You just begin to go down the chain of business, how business operates, and you begin to say, well, there were several vendors that serviced that hotel. So what's happened to those contracts that those smaller businesses and subcontractors had? So they're not going to probably have those services for several months. So it's a domino effect. We're talking about thousands of jobs. We're not talking about a few hundred. We're talking about thousands of jobs that are affected because of what's going on.
And with that consequence, now we're seeing potentially, I think as we shared earlier, that businesses will certainly change, employment numbers and population may decrease. Going forward then, when we're looking at it, the thousands of jobs across the sectors, I believe the Chamber may have put something together, or has the Chamber put something together relative to, in this sector, you're looking at X number, in this sector, Y number. Is that sort of information available as yet? Preliminary.
Well, we're putting something together right now. A report is actually being done. And as Woody mentioned, we're putting a survey out to the different businesses. It's not only chamber members, but any business. We're asking them to fill it out and tell us the state of play. Because, again, that's the only way we can actually confirm what's happening on the ground.
Right.
Because Cayman is a small business society. I mean, and just looking at the chamber memberships, it's as high as 70% of all of our members employ fewer than 10 people in their organizations.
Right.
So they're very small businesses. So they definitely will be impacted by this.
What is the timeline in relation to get back the survey results? And then once you have it, when is it expected that you would have it in a format that you could share it publicly?
Well, again, I think it all depends on the response to the survey, but I think the Chamber Council has been working feverishly to get the report ready as quickly as possible. So I'm not sure whether it'll be by the end of this month or early next month. It just depends on, because again, we're talking about a lot of moving parts here. And you heard the Minister of Finance a few minutes ago talking about the numbers that government's trying to piece together. And you heard the Financial Secretary tell you what the numbers look like at the end of March.
Mm-hmm.
Now they have to forecast by the end of May. So there's lots of moving parts here.
Right. Now, from the Chamber's perspective, is there a call or an opening voice from members within the private sector who are unemployed, whether in the hospitality or other areas, to say, listen, there's nothing happening here. When can we have the airports open that we can leave? Or are they saying, you know what, let's just stick it out here and see how it goes? Is there any sort of early indications as to what the people in the private sector want? Do they want to stay? Do they want to go?
Well, it really depends. I mean, what I'm seeing, the Chamber actually released something in an email that we sent out, which is if your employee elects to be repatriated, if they make a decision and they aren't really going to be, they're more than laid off, they're made redundant, then maybe, you let us know if they want to go back home. So we have come up with a list, and we will be submitting that to the governor's office. And I can tell you right now, it is growing. It's increasing by the day.
So are we in the hundreds or in the thousands?
Well, the ones that we've got, we only started this about a week ago, and we're actually over 100 now.
100, but that's, some are
all
also.
All nationalities.
Yeah, but 100 people, not that many. I mean, if we got 100,000 people, Susan and I got 100 people in our domino game. No, just kidding. But there is that.
But remember, we're just assisting with the process.
Yeah.
The people who want to submit him, the governor's office probably has received many more.
All right. And then in terms of confidence going forward, any feedback yet or any way of getting some sort of indication from the chamber members as to how they see it down the road? Are they confident and bullish? Are they tentative and reserved? I mean, any sort of information. So I know it's not, quantitative, but anything like that thus far?
It's all speculative, Dwayne, when you think about it, right? Every industry is going to be impacted in a different way here. If I was to talk to somebody in the hospitality industry, their outlook would probably be pretty bleak right now.
Mm-hmm.
If I talk to maybe the supermarkets and others that are demand industry where everyone needs that service, well, they're probably overwhelmed right now. So every industry is going to be affected differently. And as you heard the minister a few minutes ago, financial services saying, the finance, he was talking about the financial industry. The financial industry is going to be impacted by this, and just because of the world markets. And you heard his own prediction, not the government's prediction, as to his feeling about the industry itself and how it's being impacted.
Right.
So every industry is going to be impacted differently. My biggest concern at the chamber, what I see on the ground, are the small businesses, the ones that are the lifeblood of this country, the Caymanian-owned businesses that need support, they need assistance, and those are the ones that I believe are going to be impacted most severely because of this.
If I may ask then, because we were trying to do an informal sort of assessment, and we've heard, as you just shared, a lot of Caymanian-owned businesses, but there are a lot of people saying, but a lot of businesses are not Caymanian-owned. Is there something in there that we're not quite understanding?
What do you mean by that?
I'm not understanding the question.
Okay, fair enough. Again, it's informal, and we were picking up on a comment that have been made a number of times where people have been sharing. And when this crisis hit, two of the more prominent sort of, I want to pick up that question at a time. We're going to the press briefing. Gents, we'll come back to you. All right, be safe. Bye-bye. And we have the press briefing now, so stay tuned to Radio K-Man.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's press briefing on the coronavirus. I'm Donna Bush. Welcome to our viewers on CIG television, as well as those on our social media platforms, as well as listeners on Radio K-Man. We'll go live now to a prayer from the Reverend Godfrey Magoo.
Let us pray. Ask and it shall be given you. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door will be opened for you. Holy and almighty God, who just turned back the angel of the plague of death from the dwelling of thy people, we beseech thee to hear our cry for those who are suffering and dying under the visitation of disease and virus. In thy mercy, O God, bless and enhance the efforts and research being used to stop the spread of this pandemic. Strengthen those who labor to heal and comfort the afflicted. Support us when we are scared and afraid. Restore us to the joy of salvation and faith in thee. Through Christ, who suffered, bled, and died, yea, that we might have hope and a future. In his name we pray. Amen.
And thank you, Reverend Magoo. We now welcome our panelists, His Excellency the Governor, Premier the Honourable Alden McLaughlin, and the Honourable Minister for Health, the Honourable Dwayne Seymour. We'd also like to welcome in the room with us Dr. John Lee, Chief Medical Officer, as well as Commissioner of Police, Mr. Derek Byrne. Also joining us is Director of HMCI, Ms. Danielle Coleman. And of course, the media is joining us via Zoom from homes across Grand Cayman. We'd also like to invite or welcome Dr. Samuel Williams Rodriguez he is the Medical Officer of Health from the Health Services Authority. Welcome to everyone. We now go to Dr. John Lee.
Good afternoon. I have no further results from yesterday to report to you, which means that the total number of people we have tested is 580, 54 positive results for COVID-19, 526 negative, 6 people fully recovered, and 1 death. We have, as yesterday, 16 symptomatic, 6 have clinically recovered, 20 asymptomatic, and we have 1 person in Cayman Brac who doesn't have any symptoms as well. Of the 5 people that are admitted, they are either stable or doing well. At the Health Services Authority, I've previously mentioned somebody was being ventilated. There's somebody else that is stable, and the 3rd patient is a lot better. The 2 patients at Health City who are there for other reasons apart from COVID but happen to be COVID positive are also stable. We mentioned yesterday about the isolation area in Georgetown around an apartment complex. I'm just to give you a little bit of update. We don't have any results, as I've mentioned, on this apartment complex, but there are 26 units there with separate kitchens. Over 40 samples have been taken for testing. Everybody is well at the complex as of this time. The apartments are single or small family occupancy. Some wider contacts are also being traced from that apartment unit. I thought it might be helpful just to explain that PAHO and the World Health Organization has different categories for how COVID-19 is progressing in every country. And at the moment, we have been declared to have clusters of cases. The first 2 categories are no cases and sporadic cases. So we're at the 3rd category of clusters of cases. And that's where we hope to stay. That's why we're putting all this intense effort into the suppression of COVID-19, so that we stay at clusters of cases and don't move to sustained community transmission. Almost every country in the world, well, certainly all of the European countries that we all know about, and the United States and other American countries all have sustained community transmission. We're putting so much effort into trying to not get into that category, as that's where the numbers of people getting sick, the numbers of people dying start to rise. So that's our current position. One last thing before I finish is to mention I really am impressed the number of people that I see out exercising. I'm mentioning to His Excellency the Governor and Honourable Premier today, I would hazard a guess it's maybe 4 times as normal than I normally see, because as people around my area will know, I go out mornings and evenings. And so well done, everyone. I'm glad to see that exercise happening, because that will stand you in good stead, not only for now, but also for non-communicable diseases. And if you could stop smoking at the same time, that would be great. On the point of exercise, though, please, there's been a bit of information about the fact that if you are running and breathing hard, and also if you're cycling, breathing hard, doing a lot of work, you may actually you will need to increase your safe distances. So instead of that 6 foot of social distancing for a runner in the straight line path that they're going in, you'd want to consider a 15 feet from that runner, and similarly a cyclist up to 60 feet in that path to stay out of that zone if you're in their wake. Thank you, Donna.
Okay, Dr. Lee. We don't seem to have any questions from the media coming forth. Actually, Reshma from the Compass is ready to ask you a question. Reshma, go ahead.
Thank you, Donna. Good afternoon, Dr. Lee. Sorry, I was slow on the draw there. Just to go back to what you indicated, that we have no results. Can you say how much tests are pending and why we don't have any results available today?
Results, we've kept promising the lab that they can have days off, and every single day that we promised them, they have not had it. Today has been a day that the senior lab person has been, again, is at work, but had been promised a day off. There probably will be results this afternoon. It's just a matter of giving people a bit of a break, so we're trying to reduce the intensity a little bit. So we have around 40 results coming out of the apartment complex in Georgetown. I'm not sure how many others, but most days we've had, teens, early 20s. It's that sort of number. So that's what we're expecting. I haven't got an absolute figure for you. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thank you, Dr. Lee. Just to go back to the Georgetown apartment complex, you said 40 results are pending. Is it that just these 40 individuals have been isolated, or do you have a figure as to how many people within that complex have been contained in isolation?
I am hazarding a guess. Again, I don't have the absolute figure for the number of contained, but I would imagine that it is 40-something plus, because we know there are 26 apartments. I mentioned that some are single occupancy, the others are either 2 or 3 people, so 40 would be about the number. I think basically they've swabbed most everybody that was there, but each apartment complex was assessed, had their own risk assessment. So if, for example, if somebody said, no, I've had absolutely no contact with anybody, then it is arguable they might not have been swabbed, but I suspect they all have been swabbed there.
Okay,
I'll be able to come back and give you that information.
Sorry?
I'll be able to come back and give you that information.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Before I hand off, this question keeps coming in from members of the public. When or are you considering issuing a mandatory order for people to wear masks in public?
Not yet. We're still trying to make sure that people have enough access to them. That's the problem. It's not fair to make that statement if people don't have enough access. I know that there are a lot of seamstresses out there working hard to ramp up their activity, and that is the thing that is holding us back. It is very possible, I know in some countries they're doing it, or I'm not sure if it's actually maybe even in Cayman, that shops are requiring people to wear masks. It could be that going into that sort of environment, we would say you'd need to do that. But we're just waiting a few more days to have the feeling that people have enough access.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lee.
Okay, Dr. Lee, I have a question for you from the public. The question reads that they understand there are a few people on island who are required under doctor's orders to use a pool or to use some form of water to exercise because of the seriousness of their of their health-related issues, and they're suffering because they're not able to do that. What can persons like that find themselves in that position do?
Yeah, I'm very sympathetic to that. As many people will know, I used to be a pain doctor. I've had a lot of people who that was a really useful mechanism for managing their symptoms. And it's a shame, but nevertheless, it is the case that we need, in order for us to keep hold of this situation that we have, we really can't allow that sort of activity at the moment. However, there are therapists on Ireland who are still able to work. And might I suggest they either approach their primary care practitioner, or if they have direct links with some sort of hands-on therapist, they might contact them. Therapists and doctors obviously can and have applied for exemption to curfew time at gov.ky and are able to do so in order to provide therapy, and they may well be able to find some ease through that mechanism. And a lot of the consultations, certainly with the GP, for example, can be done over the phone, so it won't actually involve any travel. And it is possible that a therapist might also be able to talk through some things that some people could do at home.
Okay.
There's also, I think, a lot of self-help out there, and that might be something to avail.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lee. Okay, if no other questions for Dr. Lee, we'll now call on Commissioner Derek Byrne for his update.
Good afternoon. Just a brief overview of the bank holiday stats. Over the bank holiday weekend, a total of 84 persons were warned for prosecution. This includes 50 pedestrians and 34 persons driving vehicles. It was a mix of breaches of hard and soft curfew. Easter Sunday, the 12th of April, during a period of full lockdown, 50 persons were detected in breach of hard curfew. This is the highest number of breaches on any single day for persons being warned for prosecutions since the COVID-19 measures were introduced on the 23rd of March 2020. So some concern there, hard curfew, 50 detected breaches in one day. Looking overnight, last night at a report, no significant issues of a policing nature to report during hard curfew overnight. The crime situation remains stable. The hard curfew continues to operate well across the islands, despite the very high numbers of breaches reported for Easter Sunday. Little Cayman, no issues overnight. Cayman Brac, 16 vehicles stopped by police. No breaches of curfew detected. All were essential services personnel. Grand Cayman, last night, 141 vehicles stopped by police. 9 breaches of curfew were detected. This included 5 drivers of vehicles, 2 pedestrians, and 2 persons exercising in breach of hard curfew. Just like to take a moment to refer to 2 incidents that occurred yesterday evening during soft curfew, which resulted in 2 arrests. At 4:36 p.m. on Pennsylvania Avenue, police signalled the driver of a high-powered motorcycle to stop. The driver sped from the scene and accelerated to a speed of near 100 miles per hour and hit himself and the motorcycle off the main road. The police helicopter assisted and tracked the motorcycle, guiding ground units to the scene. The driver was arrested and taken to our custody detention centre for processing. The motorcycle was not stolen. The driver will be charged with a breach of soft curfew and multiple road traffic breaches. In a second incident, at 5:10 p.m. yesterday evening, on Godfrey Nixon Way, one of our special constables on patrol in full police uniform came across a collision where a van with 2 occupants had crashed into 2 parked vehicles. The special constable was dealing with the incident at the scene when the driver of the van drove deliberately at the special constable on 2 occasions, narrowly missing him and causing extensive damage to the police vehicle, which is now a write-off. The van then deliberately and maliciously crashed into a mini-mart, causing structural damage. Additional police units responded and the driver and his passenger were arrested and conveyed to the custody detention centre. The driver was breath tested and found to be well in excess of the legal limit. The driver is currently detained at our custody detention centre and will be charged with a breach of soft curfew, multiple road traffic breaches, reckless endangerment in his attempts to injure the officer, and malicious or criminal damage to the police vehicle. The special constable received minor injuries. He's well and he remained on duty. Looking at this morning since 6 a.m., 12 breaches of soft curfew have been detected by police. 11 persons were issued with tickets and 1 person was warned for prosecution. The breaches involved 10 persons driving vehicles, 1 pedestrian, all in breach of soft curfew, and 1 person walking along the beach in breach of hard curfew. That person has been warned for prosecution. The roads are busy with traffic today. Supermarkets, pharmacies, gas stations and banks are operating well using the alphabet surnames L to Z, with operations being well managed, well controlled and social distancing protocols being followed. Our helicopter and marine units continue to be deployed on extended tours, monitoring ground and marine activity. A reminder that we'll return to hard curfew this evening at 7 p.m, which runs to 5 a.m. in the morning. If you are not an exempted person, as essential services personnel, you cannot be out and about from your home or away from your home between these hours. Please stay at home. A further reminder that the beach access remains in full lockdown, a full curfew across the beaches, across the Cayman Islands, and that remains in place until at least 5 a.m. this coming Friday, the 17th of April. Just one little announcement to make in terms of cyber scam that appears to be going around, and not just in the Cayman Islands. Persons are receiving unsolicited mails seeking donations, appealing to sense of your, I suppose, essentially appealing to your sense of generosity, looking for donations for COVID-19. We're asking, and the advice is to ignore these unsolicited mails. You know the trusted sources if you wish to make donations. They're generally regarded as cyber scams. It's just to be alert for persons who may be receiving them. Nothing further to report from the police. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Byrne, we do have a few questions for you from members of the press, beginning with Ralph Lewis from the Caymanian Times.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. During my approved travels on the road, I'm seeing shorter lines at the supermarkets. Have there been a drop in activity at the supermarkets? And if so, can you say what you think is causing this?
I can't say if there's been a drop in activity. I know I visit the supermarkets during the day on patrol, and as I said, they're being well managed and well controlled. I think early in the morning there is a bit of a rush, and during the day it appears to dissipate, particularly after 3 or 4 in the afternoon. From what I can see, they're well stocked. All the supermarkets, everything's in place, and it's all running quite well.
Okay, thank you.
Up next is Reshma from The Compass.
Thank you, Donna. Commissioner, thank you for your report. I'm just curious, given that the beaches are closed now, are you concerned with the number of people that you're seeing exercising in concentrated numbers in small areas? For example, yesterday there were quite a few exercising individuals in South Sound along the boardwalk and at various points.
No concern there, Reshma. The idea is no more than 2 persons. Social distancing protocols must be followed. And I think, as Dr. Lee has said, the exercise is the right thing to be doing, not on the beaches. No access to public beaches, but exercising out so far as you can within your communities during soft curfew. And again, the hours 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily, as I understand it, good for all.
Okay. Now, and just sticking with that same community and the growing numbers, are there any plans for you to, say, beef up patrols in those areas to ensure public safety when there are road users as well?
We are out. We have police mobile and static patrols on a 24-hour basis. And I said we have our helicopter up in the sky guiding us after any breach is detected. We receive reports from the public almost by the hour or more inside to our command centre and through the 911 centre, and we guide our units then to deal with any breaches that are reported.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we go next to Wendy from CNS.
Thanks, Don. I just have 2 questions for the Commissioner. The first one is, do we have a tally of the number of people that the police have warned for prosecution that are waiting, so we have a list of those people that are waiting for prosecution, if you like? Because it seems as though we've only had 1 case go through the courts, and I think 2 other cases that I've seen on the summary court documents have shown people committing other crimes, but then breach of curfew has also been added. But I just wondered if we could get a tally of the amount of people that you've stopped and are now waiting to be prosecuted. I'm not saying you have to have it now, but if you could get that for us.
Well, I can give some figures now, Wendy. So the figures are 246 persons have been detected since the start. We have 138 files with the DPP at the moment, and directions or legal rulings have been received in 24 cases. Other files will be submitted.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. Also, the second one is about the protocols for the police. We were just talking earlier about masks. And when I was out and about, I also noticed that the police at the supermarkets, who are very much on the front line, they're not wearing masks, and they seem to think that because we are wearing masks, that's okay, when actual fact it's the other way round in terms of safety. Do you understand what I mean? Like, the police need to wear masks to keep us safe and vice versa. So I just wondered whether you as a commissioner have decided on a protocol yet about whether your officers should or should not be wearing masks.
So we've issued the officers with masks from very early on, and I said gloves and hand sanitizer. My preference is that officers do wear masks, but it's not a compulsory issue at the moment, and I think we may get to that stage over the next few days. But all officers are issued with N95 masks. They do have gloves and they do have hand sanitizers.
Do they realise, though, that by not wearing them, they're putting us at risk? Because if I'm wearing a mask and the police officer isn't, I'm protecting him from me, but he's not. I'm not protected from him or her.
So I fully appreciate and understand the point you're making, Wendy, and I'll go back and reinforce this issue this evening. I'll speak to the command team.
Thank you.
Okay, if we have no further questions for the Commissioner of Police, we will go to our panel of experts and leading officials, beginning with Premier, the Honourable Alden McLaughlin.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Donna, for that promotion to expert. I'm not sure I can claim that, but I'll start with my customary report on the world stats about the progress of the virus through the world. Total cases, 1,936,754. Total recovered cases, 465,899. In the United States, 603,364 cases, up 16,423 overnight. Total deaths are now at 25,193, up a tremendous 1,553 overnight. Spain, 172,541, up 2,442 overnight. Total deaths, 18,056. New deaths, 300. So the number of deaths are significantly reducing in Spain. Let's hope that's a trend. Italy, 162,488, up 2,972 overnight. Total deaths, 21,067, up 602 overnight. France, 143,303. New cases, 6,524. Total deaths, 15,729, up 762 overnight. Germany, which continues to be a remarkable phenomenon. 131,170 cases, up 1,098 overnight. Total deaths, 3,272, up just 78 overnight. United Kingdom, 93,873, up 5,252 overnight. Total deaths reported, 12,107, up 778 overnight. The reason I said reported is because it has now been acknowledged that deaths within the care homes or rest homes have not been reported, and that would increase the number by more than 2,000. China, 82,249, 89 cases overnight. Total deaths, 3,341, and no deaths reported overnight. Netherlands, 27,419, up 868 overnight. Total deaths, 2,945, up 122 overnight. Canada, 26,897, up 1,217 overnight. Total deaths 898, up 118 overnight. Portugal 17,448, up 514 overnight. Total deaths 567, up 32 overnight. India 10,941 reported cases, up 488 overnight. Total deaths reported 368, up 10 overnight. Philippines 5,223. New cases 291. Total deaths 335, up 20 overnight. We have to, in some of these cases, we have to take the numbers, though, with a pinch of salt because of the number of tests that are being performed. New Zealand, 1,366 cases, up 17 overnight. 9 deaths, up 4 overnight. Trinidad and Tobago, 113 cases reported, 8 deaths. Jamaica, 73 cases reported, up 4 overnight. New York State, 202,208, up 6,553 overnight. Total deaths now at 10,834, up 778 overnight. No change in our sister territories, British Overseas Territories. Anguilla, 3 cases. Bermuda, 57 cases and 5 deaths. British Virgin Islands, 3 cases. Montserrat, 11 cases. There is a change. Montserrat, up 2 overnight. Turks and Caicos, 10 cases and 1 death. I just want to address some concerns that have been brought to my attention regarding some of the things I said yesterday, particularly with respect to the government's objective or goal of eliminating the virus within this community. Apparently that has caused some concern, particularly within the business community. People worried about the length of time they think it would take before we were able to raise the restrictions and allow business to start back. Let me say this. I've also heard that it said that this has not been achieved in any other country in the world. Let me say I start from this premise. Cayman has been ahead of the curve from the very outset. Long before I think most people thought it was reasonable for us to start to impose restrictions on movement and close schools and so forth, we took those measures. We took those measures advisedly because we have been following from last year what has been occurring in other countries with respect to this dread disease. And we've tried to learn lessons from what's happened, and we're still learning lessons from what is happening in other countries. So that is why a month since we had our first diagnosed case, we are still only at 54 cases, and the only death that we have was as I said yesterday, the unfortunate Italian gentleman who came to Cayman with the disease. It is the measures that we have put in place that essentially have achieved the physical distancing, which is so critical to preventing the transmission of the disease, that has given us those results and have put us in this enviable position. Now, with respect to the objective of elimination, let me say this. This is the Cayman Islands, 65,000 people. This is not New York State, 19.5 million people. This is not the United Kingdom, 65 million people, or any of those other big countries. It is absolutely achievable to eliminate the disease here. We have the capacity to test every single person that is here and some more. So that is why we believe eliminating the disease within Cayman, with our borders remaining closed, with the only people who are allowed here being forced, or let me not use a hard word to that, being required as a condition of their re-entry here to be quarantined in a government-run facility for a minimum of 14 days and to be tested before being released. We believe it is absolutely possible to achieve a completely virus-free state in these islands. But we will only be able to do so if collectively we have the determination and the will to do so. Otherwise, all of us, for the foreseeable future, will be moving around with this sense of dread and concern in relation to every single person you meet. Does he or she have it? Can I get this close to them or not? Or walking around with masks for the next 6, 8, 9, 10 months. That's what we're trying to avoid by the very aggressive approach that we have adopted and the insistence on social distancing. We believe it is achievable. The advice we've had from Public Health England, the advice Dr. Lee continues to give us, is that if we can get to a point where there are no positive results for 14 days, we can then start to look at easing some of these restrictions on a phased basis. That's where we're trying to get to. Does this cause hardship? Does this cause financial, in some cases, disaster for businesses and great grief and concern for many people? Absolutely. Does it mean major inconvenience, a disruption of your lifestyle? Absolutely. Believe you me, none of us are immune to this. My team, and they forward them to me, I've got about a dozen today, complaints, concerns, petitions from people who want their pools clean, who want the barber shops and salons reopened, who want the Home Depots reopened, a full range of things, because people need things, people want to have some semblance of what their life was like before the lockdown started. Believe you me, none of us are immune to these needs and wants. Everyone in this panel is going through the same, as Keimanya says, sufferation. My pool isn't cleaned. The AC in my bedroom is leaking. I have to sleep on the couch because we can't use the AC up there. I have one toilet that doesn't flush. I'm sure there are people with much greater challenges than that. But we have to make do, because to allow technicians into your house is to introduce the real risk that the virus comes. That's why I will sleep on the couch rather than call someone in to fix the AC. I know exactly what's wrong with it, but I can't fix it. These are, I say these things, very personal things in relation to my own circumstances, because I want people to understand that we are all having to make do and to live life at a lesser standard than we're all used to. The governor, I had forgotten when we insisted on locking down the beaches that means he can't run on the beach anymore. So he's had to go find somewhere else to run. I mean, that's a relatively minor inconvenience, but my point is that nobody is unaffected by these restrictions. We just need to bear in mind what the goal is, what it is we're trying to do as a country. We're doing these things, we're going through these privations because we want to get to the other side where we can open back up the economy so all of us can have some semblance of normalcy in our lives. And I just want to finish by thanking the frontline staff, all the frontline staff who are out there every day, in many cases every night, trying to keep order, trying to ensure that the key essential services that we all need continue to be provided. Chief among these that I wish to single out are the healthcare personnel who do an incredible job. They are treating COVID-19 patients. They are putting their lives on the line every single day and night that they go to work. They've done an incredible job, are still doing an incredible job. And those carrying out the testing as well. All the public health staff who have to go and deliver medication, who have to go and check that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing in terms of isolating. All of them, from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of the entire government, I thank you. And I especially want to thank the Commissioner of Police, Derek Byrne, and his incredible staff, including those that have been seconded on board from CBC and elsewhere, all of the special constables who are out there when the rest of us are sleeping or should be sleeping, in the case of the curfew breakers, for the incredible job that they continue to do day in, day out. And I also want to thank the 911 staff, who I think by and large go unheralded, the tremendous work that they do. We really only hear about the 911 if something goes wrong with the system, and then you hear 911 is down. But while it's working seamlessly, as it does most of the time, very few of us even remember them. So again, I want to give a special shout out to all of them. Thank you all for all you do.
Thank you, Premier McLaughlin, Your Excellency.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. Let me first just add my thanks to everybody the Premier has just highlighted. Absolutely heartfelt thanks to all of those. I want today just to refer to the question of evacuation flights. A lot of work is going on behind the scenes, and we've made good progress. We will be announcing very soon where those flights are going, but there will be a flight to Miami. Canada is looking very good. There will be a flight to Nicaragua. We're working on Jamaica, which is slightly more challenging, and we'll announce that information as soon as we can. I do want to note for our Indian nationals, we have had a lot of contact from Indian nationals, but unfortunately, airports in India are closed for at least 3 weeks, so we won't be able to organise flights for Indian nationals, at least for the next 3 weeks, but obviously we will monitor this situation and keep it under review. And work as well, continuing on another air bridge using British Airways. I'm very aware that a lot of people have raised the question of pets, and we're conscious how important that is. That is being looked at, and that's all I can say today. Second point, I announced on Saturday that there was discussion about creating a national recovery fund. A lot of people have been contacting us to ask how they can donate. I think you have to hold fire for now. Those discussions continue amongst various people out there in the private sector and civil society, and I know an announcement will be made as soon as possible on that. My third point today, I know the beach closure has been very difficult for a lot of people, although I have found somewhere else to run, so don't worry, Premier. But so many other people have contacted me to say they absolutely understand why we've had to do this. If you're looking for something else to do on fitness, I want to highlight a gentleman called Joe Wicks in the UK who has gone viral. He's a PE teacher, and there's something you can see on YouTube, PE with Joe. So if you're looking for something to do at home, some exercise, have a look at Joe Wicks, because it's so many people in the UK are using him. Although you may not want to have your PE teacher in your front room. But anyway, that's gone viral in the UK. And then finally today, I just want to say thank you to Jay at the Cayman Islands Tourist Association for these wonderful beakers that we're all using today with a very clear message that I hope everybody can see.
Yeah, everybody's messaging. They want to know where they can buy those mugs. Okay, we're going to move now to the Minister of Health. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Donna. Good afternoon, everyone in Grand Cayman, Cayman Brac, and Little Cayman. This was sent to me, and I told them I would read it on air. True education does not ignore the value of scientific knowledge or literary achievements, but above information, it values power. Above power, goodness. Above intellectual achievement, character. The world does not so much need men of great intellect as it does men of noble character. It needs men in whom ability is controlled by steadfast principles. I thank you. Also want to note, someone else sent me, most of the important things in the world have been accomplished by people who kept on trying when there seems to be no hope at all. Scripture reading today comes from Ephesians 4:18 and Ephesians 6:11 through 13. Having the understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of God's through the ignorance that is in them because of the blindness of their heart. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye might be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. As long as the devil is unhappy, I'm happy. I suspected these scriptures are making his followers uncomfortable. I pray for you. I want to say that I still see some people on the road, and I just want to say to the community, let's beat this, guys. The quicker we can follow the measures put in place, the faster persons can shore fish, can swim, etc. Let's beat this. Together we can do this. Translations today on Please Stay Home, as what we're trying to encourage to dampen the spread of this disease, will be in Finnish and Danish. Finnish, please stay home, is Ole Kilde. In Danish, it's Vær venlig at være hjem. I thank you. Shout out today's to NAU again and Councillor Harris. You guys are going through some changes, but still being effective. Keep up the good works. Hold your heads up high. Shout out to the listeners in Dubai. I heard from you. Thank you for tuning in to the Cayman Islands. I want to shout out to Big Fish Radio. Please have your children listen in to Big Fish Radio at 3 p.m. daily. It's a kiddos hour, but adults will also love it. It's Radio 95.5. This morning, when I went out and about, went to the supermarket and the gas station, I saw at least 90% of the persons wearing face coverings. This was very, very welcome this morning, and I thank you for doing that, for playing your part. I would say please wear a mask. In fact, if I was a business and before the government mandates such a thing, I would insist everyone coming in entering my business cover their nose and mouths. Let's do our part. We don't have to wait for any instructions. There are people out there that still has to shop, that are very vulnerable, and we are trying our best to keep the number of losses down. As someone said, never in my wildest dream did I imagine I'd go up to a bank teller with a mask on asking for money. I want to say that there is a lady in New Jersey who followed all the measures, never left home, but still died. She contracted COVID-19 collecting her mail. So please be aware that we need to be conscious at all times in everything that we do. This is a time in the country and around the world where we need to band together as one in unity and be willing to sacrifice for all good of humanity. We have done so much to ensure that as a country we can rebound to some sense of normalcy. We have closed our borders. We have promoted social distancing. We put additional measures in place to ensure widespread infections are minimal. We support our hospitals and doctors with whatever is needed for them to cope with this pandemic. We ordered equipment and supplies to prepare for any rise in the case of COVID-19. We inform daily by press conference. We have helped with meeting the utility companies, the banks, pension companies, health insurance companies. We provided support through social services assistance. We are constantly engaged in world politics and reach out to the leaders to ensure we are in tandem with all. We are ensuring our medical staff have the personal protection equipment needed to continue working hard for you. We ensure our country is safe during these times. There is a story about being proud of your country and willing to show courage of sacrifice. Now imagine if we had the same determination and made the type of sacrifice to the end like the national hero of Costa Rica. He was a lowly drummer boy in the Costa Rican army as a poor laborer, born August 29, 1831, and in April 1856, the American William Walker tried to conquer the Central American nation to form a private slaveholding empire. The Costa Ricans were unable to push Walker back and out of the hostel near the town center. Some of the Costa Rican soldiers advanced towards the hostel with a torch to set it on fire, but many of them tried but failed and were killed. But this gentleman, the drummer boy, on April the 12th, 1856, at 25 years old, volunteered to go towards the Walker's army, but under one condition, that in the event of his death, which was very likely, that someone would look after his mother. He advanced and was mortally wounded by enemy fire, but before expiring, he succeeded, however, in setting the hostel on fire, thus contributing to the Costa Rican victory at Rivas. That man who sacrificed his life for the good of country was Juan Santa Maria, who was called the Sea Urchin. He was recognized as a national hero of Costa Rica. Costa Rica's main airport is named after him, the Juan Santa Maria International Airport. I've been just as brave as Santa Maria, and until you're brave and courageous as him and willing to stand with this country, you ought to say to yourself, I am ashamed. Today, I would also like to update you on more of my ministry's effort to keep you all safe from the coronavirus threat. Yesterday, I highlighted the Department of Environmental Health for their contributions to this vital work. I asked you to ensure your families were aware of the correct ways to dispose of trash to help keep these frontline workers safe. Today, I would like to applaud the DEH again for maintaining all collection targets when it comes to trash collection. This challenge has been exacerbated by the need for 20 staff to self-isolate as a precautionary measure. In spite of the reduction in manpower, while DEH employees step up to protect their families and the community, the department has managed to maintain service as usual, meeting every target set for them. I thank this hard-working team for their role in keeping us safe at this time. We also welcome on board 10 new staff members. They will also help the DEH process solid waste and are crucial to ensure we maintain continuity of the operations at the department. We thank you for your service. Last week, I told you about HSA's recruitment drive to ensure we have the necessary staff to keep the Cayman Islands safe. If you're a nurse or work in housekeeping and cleaning, please contact the HSA at hs.jobs@hsa.ky for these temporary roles. Our nation needs all hands on deck to ensure we remain prepared. I ask the viewers and listeners to do their part to help keep all of their essential staff safe. Stay home to save lives. Staying home is Cayman kind. I also want to note that all the persons at the Georgetown complex that Dr. Lee spoke about earlier were swabbed and were informed the need to isolate. I hope my presentation has been insightful and informational. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Minister Seymour. I do have a few questions from the public for Commissioner of Police, Mr. Derek Byrne. Commissioner, one of the first questions persons are asking if you could explain the penalty for the person who was found walking on the beach with the hard curfew. And the second question pertains to if you can give any additional information on the 24 rulings that you mentioned.
Yes, so the penalty for breach of hard curfew for any person, including the person walking on the beach this morning, is a fine of 3,000 Cayman dollars and to a term of imprisonment of 1 year or to both. And
Okay,
the second question was 24 rulings. They're files that are sent by the processing office in the RCIPS Criminal Justice Department to the DPP. The DPP considers the facts and has directed a prosecution should take place for breach of curfew in 24 cases at this time. There are still another number of cases with the DPP awaiting direction or legal ruling.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. We go now to Wendy from CNS.
Thank you, Donna. My first couple of questions are for Dr. Lee. Dr. Lee, I would like to know, can you clarify where we get the figures from regarding recovery? Because it seems that we've got 6 people that have been recovered, and we've had 6 people that have been recovered for ages. Am I right in understanding that the people who test positive but never show symptoms of the virus are never included in the figure? So perhaps for us, a more understandable figure for the public might be how many people have tested positive and have gone through their 14-day quarantine and are now clear. So they have not necessarily recovered because they never suffered in the first place, but just so we get an idea of how many people are, over and done with, as it were.
Absolutely, Wendy. I'm sorry for the confusion. So when we say the ones that have fully recovered, the recovered figure that we're giving are actually, you're quite right, some of them may have had very mild symptoms or not been unwell at all. So maybe we should possibly rephrase that and say are negative. I don't know. We'll have to think about that. But that's what we meant by that they've had their second test. We're about to have a whole bunch of people that have had their second test to say that they're clear. So what it means is that if you're positive, you will automatically get 2 clearance tests at the end of the 14-day period or at the end of the period of your symptoms, whichever is longer. So we were about to get a lot more of those, but we're still relatively early on in that period. And there's also obviously a lag for the laboratories getting both of those tests managed. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, I now understand. Yes. Okay. So, for example, the 4 students that tested positive and then they were waiting for more tests, they have not had their clear negative test yet then?
Well, you know what my answer is going to be to that I don't go into individual cases when you might be able to identify the people. But you're quite right that there are quite a few people who are getting first and second tests, and if they pass both of those, then they will move into the recovered bunch. Even if they may not have had symptoms, yes, they'll move into the recovered bunch.
Okay, that makes sense now. Okay, yeah, so I understand that. Thank you very much for the clarification. The other question is, just because of you were saying yesterday you were unaware, can we get sort of clear clarity on or confirmation that no one else has breached their mandatory isolation when they have tested positive and they're still in that 14-day period? Can you tell us with confidence that no one else has done that?
We had one particular family, but as I mentioned, I think it was a lack of comprehension that there was a breach. We thought we didn't have it confirmed, but we went back and explained to them that these are the circumstances, and we didn't have a problem subsequently, which is why which is what I was hedging my bets with yesterday, if you follow. And I know of no others.
Right. Okay, so it was just one possible occasion, but you feel confident now that that family fully understands
almost
and they're
all,
locked down.
Yeah, almost always it's been a question of comprehension because people don't, because there's this curfew, there's a hard curfew, there's a soft curfew, there's self-isolation, there are all these different terms that people hear. They think, well, I'm complying with that. And even though public health have explained you're in a different situation, you are absolutely not allowed out. That message sometimes needs to be given a few times, as you can understand.
Okay, thank you very much. And I just want to put a similar question to the panel and have them, because I think Dr. Lee has explained quite a few times why we should not mandatorily quarantine people who end up testing positive from the community as opposed to people that come back. But it does seem that people just aren't, the public broadly is not getting that message or understanding it. And they feel that this is our huge weak point, that we're not quarantining positive cases. So it would be good to hear from the Premier and the Governor their position supporting the arguments that Dr. Lee gave, or if indeed they feel differently. I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy, for the opportunity, because I deal with this almost every day. I was saying to His Excellency a little while ago that I get as many as 300 WhatsApp messages a day, let alone the other stuff. But this one always pops up. So what I say to people is this. We have to be reasonable and to understand that people are people. The fact that a person has a particular disease does not dehumanize the individual, regardless of what the disease is. We are still dealing with human beings. So I ask people to put themselves in this position. If you know that if you go for a test and you are tested and you test positive, that the government's response immediately is going to be to place you in a government-run, secure facility where you will have to stay for a minimum of 14 days. Would you volunteer for that test unless you were very, very sick? I'll tell you this, I wouldn't. So we've got to be very careful when we insist on such drastic measures that we don't actually make the situation worse, where we have people who are symptomatic, who are not feeling well, but who are afraid to go and get a test because they believe they will essentially be locked down. So the government is not adopting that approach on the basis of the advice we have. We insist, public health insists, the chief medical officer insists, that persons have to isolate. We have in place measures, we have in place a team that does carry out surveillance and scrutiny of persons who are known positives and who are able to respond if there are complaints made. It is only if you are in breach of that obligation, because it is a legal obligation under the public health law once the chief medical officer has issued his instruction. If people are not complying with the instruction, it is only at that stage that there would be mandatory detention. Obviously, there can be exceptions to this. So in the case of persons who have returned or returning to Cayman, we make it a condition of them being permitted to return that they are prepared to submit to being placed in a government-run facility to isolate for a minimum of 14 days. So that is how we are approaching it. As I say, the great fear, and if you think about it and think it through logically, is that if government takes a more radical approach that every positive person has to be essentially detained in a government-run facility, I fear that the number of people volunteering for tests will dry up pretty quickly. Unless people are gravely ill, they are unlikely to go to the hospital in those circumstances. That's a bit long-winded, but I didn't know how to explain it more shortly.
Because I think people just don't seem, either they're not listening or what, because we've asked this question 1,000 times, but as you say, we get the same question 10 times every day. So I just thought if you said it, maybe people would get the message. Thank you.
I just want to add briefly to what the Premier said. We have discussed this a lot, and I agree 100% with what the Premier said. It is a balance, and I think we're getting the balance absolutely right. And the numbers of cases where we've had concerns, thankfully, seem to be incredibly small and low. But we also have to think about the people who have COVID-19. For a lot of them, it's not serious, but for some of them, it is. This is not a nice thing to have, and we have to think about them, and we have to think about not stigmatizing people. So it's a balance to get this right, but I think we're getting that balance absolutely right at the moment.
Thank you very much, Governor.
Okay, I have a question for Premier McLaughlin or His Excellency from the public. It's in relation to many other countries are doing what they call massive disinfecting of their cities and their counties and towns. Is that something that could be considered here for places where persons would go to?
Donna, thank you. Great question. Over the past couple of weeks, actually the past 3 or 4 weeks, I have had the doctors at the scientists at MRCU looking at measures that we could possibly take here in cleansing our city with the fogger and sprays and etc. We're looking at many different agents to be able to use to do this. And also, we've had a lot of representation from I would say about 5 companies who said that they had the agents that they thought we needed to be able to do this. The scientist hasn't been able to get a comfort level as yet with what kind of agent we would use. And I actually spoke to them up until yesterday, sending them some new information that I got out of one of our neighboring countries of measures they're taking there. I don't just want it to be an exercise that is an appearance of that we're cleansing the street and actually not doing it. I want it to be as effective as possible. And I think that's what the scientists at MRCU wants also. They're also working with DEH on this also, and with their lab technicians in terms of finding some solution. But it is definitely one that the government wants to consider.
Okay. Minister Seymour, you mentioned earlier about trying to bring on board some part-time nurses and other health staff, and it was mentioned maybe about a week ago that some Cuban doctors would be coming on. Do you have any idea when that's going to be happening?
Well, I'd say this. The team doesn't exactly know the amount of Cuban medical staff that we would need here. But we want to ensure that all the public and private doctors are utilized and put in the equation first before we determine how many doctors we're going to bring into this country.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to go to Reshma from the Cayman Compass. Reshma, go ahead.
Thank you, Donna. My first question is to Dr. Lee. Can you say how many lab techs we have on island who are assisting with the COVID testing? I know you mentioned earlier that the main tech needs a day off. So can you apprise us of this?
I mentioned the other day the fact that there are lots of different steps, and that needs to be taken into account. So the people that can actually handle the PCR machine are, I would say, 4, 3 at the HSA and 1 at Doctors Hospital. And those are the staff that would be maintained over time. I mean, I know there may be extra expertise at the moment going into Doctors Hospital, but I understand that their permanent complement there would be one. Then there are people who do laboratory-based work, and the numbers currently at the Health Service Authority is 3. Doctors Hospital, I think it's the same one person, but they may correct me on that point. And the people able to do the laboratory work are 2 at Health City. So that is, you could say, 5.5 people to do the laboratory-based work. You also need a lot of back office staff too. You need people who are going to receive the samples and unpack them, enter it into the computer, then at the other end, put the results into the computer and so on and so forth. But the core staff who we could not do without, have particular special expertise is therefore, I'm doing it quickly in my head, 9.
Okay, thank you for that. Can you say if or how far along has the Christy Thompson Hospital come in terms of preparing its lab to assist HSA with the testing?
There is probably another update today because I know that something happened today. There was another meeting today. I haven't got an update from that meeting.
Okay.
But I do want to assure you though, Reshma, that maybe I can explain. The concern is that if we weren't in a wartime footing, which it feels very much like we are, then we would be able to have people come and visit, and people who are experts in these things come and visit Cayman in order for us to say, okay, these are the things you need to do and fix this, and this all looks great, and you're good to go. Clearly, we can't do that at the moment. So we're trying to move the matter forward, but I am not prepared to make the leap until I'm happy to make the leap to say that somebody can provide results on the behalf of public health, because we need to be able to trust those results. I'm sure you can appreciate that.
Yes, thank you. Just moving on to the Premier now. We've gotten reports from Cayman Brac with Cayman Brac Power has started disconnecting people on the sister island. I don't know if you're aware of this, or have you had discussions with Cayman Brac Power to ensure that the same policies that are implemented here for CUC also applies on the sister island?
Are you certain of your information?
Well, I have an essential worker who says that his power was turned off and his wife and 3 kids were left in the dark.
Okay. Well, we've had no such reports, and as far as I am aware, Cayman Brac Power and Light are operating on the same basis as all of the other utilities here. But I will check.
Okay. I'll stick with you, Premier, if possible. You talked about the phased plan for government dealing with the reopening of domestic reopening. Can you tell us what that phased plan is going to look like? How is it going to roll out in terms of what's going to open first and what needs to happen for that to be able to start?
Well, it's still very much a work in progress. We're learning every day. We're looking at what's happening around the world. Spain and Italy both, I think, are proposing a phased reopening. We want to see how that goes. There are major concerns that if you reopen too early, you wind up with massive spikes in the transmission of the virus, and you have to go back into lockdown again. We've looked at and are looking at what's happening in China, and although they've been incredibly effective, they are still having cases pop up. There were 89 overnight, but we're learning as we go along, and we'll make decisions about which areas are least risky in terms of easing the restrictions, and do those first, and see how that goes. See whether or not there is an increase in the number of, or there are new transmissions of which we are aware. But none of this is going to be possible until two things happen. One, that we are able to begin the aggressive testing and eliminate frontline staff as having it, and then more broadly into the community, and as well as the situation where we go 14 days and we get no positive tests.
Okay, in terms of when that plan gets to the point of rolling out, are there any considerations for, say, restrictions that may be implemented? For example, keeping the social distancing rules in place, maybe limiting the amount of people going into businesses, things like that, or have you gotten to that stage?
Yeah, so all of the above. And also the issue of wearing masks and so forth. We're considering all of these things, but because we have bought ourselves so much time, we are able to watch what's happening around the rest of the world, what works, what doesn't work, what is necessary, what isn't necessary. I see, and this is only my own view, I see what hear what I think are some very dangerous views being posited in the United States about reopening some states, and I'm waiting. I can't even look sometimes, but I'm waiting with bated breath to see how all of that transpires, because I think some of the things I'm hearing are going to result in, if they're implemented, are going to result in absolute disaster again. So, but because we are in this position, we are able to stand back and look at it and be able to assess what we think will work here and what won't.
Thank you, Premier. One final question. Parents keep sending these questions in, and we've seen from other countries, they've made the determination that they will not be reopening schools until September. Has that been part of your discussions as we move forward with our plans to deal with COVID-19?
Well, I haven't had that discussion, but that certainly is my view, looking at where we are in the school calendar now. And I should have made this announcement earlier, but this provides a perfect platform to do so. The Minister for Education has kindly agreed to join us by Zoom for tomorrow's press briefing. So she'll be able to answer those sorts of questions in greater detail.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Premier McLaughlin, a question from the public. Any update on where we're at with car inspections or the process for car inspections?
Yes, we have the legislation drafted. The draft legislation drafted, the bill, but we're still working to get a meeting of the Legislative Assembly arranged, and we'll need to have a cabinet meeting sometime during this week, probably Thursday or Friday, to hopefully approve the necessary bills to go there. There's also the amendments with respect to the pensions law, which will, and some amendments necessary with respect to the immigration law, regarding making sure that people who have been unable to regularize their status here, I shouldn't use the word status, their immigration status here, not Caymanian status, immigration status here, that they won't be penalized as a result. So we're working on all of those things in the background and in between press briefings.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to our panelists. We have no further questions from members of the media today. Before we go, a reminder that if you have a complaint or you simply just need some information on employment and unemployment issues, you can go online to gov.ky/coronavirus. Also, if you'd like to deal with things like vehicle licensing or trade and business licensing or even police clearance records, you should go on eservices.gov.ky for more information there. Of course, I'd like to thank everyone who's made today possible, and we invite you to join us here back again tomorrow.
The public is advised that the hard curfew, which is currently in place, prohibiting access to all beaches and the coastline, has been extended. This means that all beaches, including the coastline, will remain closed until 5 a.m. Friday, 17th April.
There is to be no swimming, snorkeling, fishing, exercising, or any activity on the beach or along the coastline during these times. Private owners with beach access are not allowed beyond the high water mark. This restriction has been imposed by the Commissioner of Police and will be strictly enforced. Stay home, Cayman.
As the world grapples with the challenges of COVID-19, difficult times require difficult decisions. The Lions Club of Grand Cayman would like to encourage the community to remain vigilant, respect the soft and hard curfews, which have been established for our collective welfare. By practicing good hygiene, social distancing, and home isolation, we can ensure that the community resumes its vibrant way of life soon. Do your part, Cayman. Stay safe, stay home, save lives. This message was brought to you by the Lions Club of Grand Cayman.
More than ever, we need to ensure our friends, neighbors, colleagues, and family are staying well with social distancing. That means being creative. Call them regularly. Create WhatsApp groups. Offer to assist with shopping or running errands. You could use an app like Nextdoor to see if your neighbors need assistance. While the world grapples with the latest challenges, be Cayman kind. Cayman Insurance Center. For 45 years, they have worked with the community and their families on protecting themselves for the future. If you need someone to speak to during these challenging times, call Denise Brown at 814-7229 or Michael Webster at 925-5433. Cayman Insurance Center. They care about you.
Football is at the heart and soul of our community, but this is not a time for football. The Cayman Islands Football Association would like to remind the community that the sooner we get through these uncertain times, the sooner we can get back on the pitch. Whether you are a footballer, fan, or any other athlete, this is the time to stay at home for your own safety and the health and well-being of your loved ones. Soon come, we will find ourselves in a strong position growing the game and improving football across the island. This message was brought to you by the Cayman Islands Football Association. #Stay at home.
Hello, Cayman. I'm Quincy Brown. Anybody else getting mixed up with all these new coronavirus terms? Me too. But guess what? I've watched the press conferences and I've read the press releases and I've seen all the social media posts. Look here, I can help you out. Stay home. Leave Granny alone. Darling child, I mean we can't be visiting our old people because they're more compromised. We gotta keep them safe. Una got it now? If Una want to stay up to the time with what's going on, there's only one place for the real information, the Cayman Islands government. Visit gov.ky/coronavirus. Now remember, keep washing your hands, keep following the rules, and keep taking care of each other. Saving lives is Cayman kind.
Troubles away.
Radio. With the switch of a dial, radio brings you tragedy, comedy, entertainment, information, education, a whole world at your command.
Give me some sound over here.
Radio Cayman's Super Jam Show.
Radio. Proudly sponsored by the Cayman Islands Football Association. SIFA, building a better future for Cayman football.
Word up, and we in effect. Keep on listening.
Super Jam. The Super Jam Show is fueled by the proud sponsorship of insurance agent Michael Webster from Cayman Insurance Center. Don't take chances with your family's future.
Another proud sponsor of the Super Jam Show.
Merengue Town.
Time to feel the rhythm. Time to feel the vibes. It's time for Merengue Town.
And by the Lions Club of Grand Cayman, serving the Cayman Islands for 48 years.
I don't want to lose my focus, and I don't want to waste your time. I want to show you who I really am. And if time makes it possible to love, well, I can't wait no more. I can't wait no more. It's unbelievable. There is only one thing I couldn't understand. All I ever wanted was you. Now I've opened up, and now you know the truth. Now it's time to take my chances. And if time makes it possible to love, well, I can't wait no more. I can't wait no more. It's unbelievable. Now I know exactly where I wanna be. I don't wanna be too far from reality. The only difference is me. I want permission so I can take the lead. And if time makes it possible to love, well, I can't wait no more. I can't wait no more. It's unbelievable. You should know that I cherish every moment, and I'm gonna give you what you need. You should know that I'm feeling motivated, and girl, you know I'm stuck on you. And if time makes it possible to love, well, I can't wait no more. I can't wait no more. It's unbelievable. No more. I can't wait no more. It's unbelievable. I can't wait no more. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Home, which should be a haven, can even be less of a safe space during curfew if someone is experiencing child abuse. If you or anyone you know is being abused, help is nearby. For emergencies, call 911. They will redirect your call to the relevant agencies. For general guidelines and inquiries, call the multi-agency Safeguarding Hub MASH at 1-800-534-2273 or 945-0545. Alternatively, email mash@gov.ky.
Healthcare Pharmacy takes care of your health throughout the COVID-19 virus pandemic. Our pharmacy in Grand Harbor's temporary opening hours are from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday. Our pharmacy in Governor's Square is open from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Saturday. Please go to healthcarepharmacy.ky to refill and transfer your prescriptions online. That makes for easier and fast pickup times at our pharmacies, and we will get to keep our social distancing. We urge you to stay home and stay safe, K-Man.
The Department of Children and Family Services, DCFS, is providing the following non-emergency numbers for weekdays: 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Please call 925-5120 or 926-6853, Grand Cayman, and 929-7932, Cayman Brac. For the department's critical services assistance, including child protection by the Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub, MASH, call 1-800-534-2273 or 945-0545 or email mash@gov.ky. To access critical services supporting the protection of the elderly, email DCFS Elderly Services @gov.ky. For emergencies, please call 911.
When you've got boxed in your freezer, there's no need to stress. Just heat it up, cause we've done the rest. Get boxed, it's local. Get boxed, it's tasty. Get boxed, it's easy. Get boxed.
Boxed meals are available in the freezer aisle at all major supermarkets, or stay at home and take advantage of their free home delivery with any order of $100. Visit boxed.ky for the full menu. Order at wholesale at catering.ky or call 326-3937.
Area code 345 LSN overtime.
I going down there record. I go down there record.
Area code 345 LSN overtime.
Bobo, I'm going down by Walmart, going to pick up a fish. You want to come over?
I wish you would spend some time with me, girl. I just want the loving that you're holding back. I know I could spend all night with you, girl. Yes, I got the loving and that's a fact. Do it all, good and bad, saw the signs. Buds are blown, but the love still resides. I wish you would spend some time with me, girl. But you wanna give it up, give it up, give it up. Give it up, but you wanna go ahead and give it up. Give it up, give it up, but you wanna go ahead and give it up. Too much thoughts inside my head, I just want my love instead. I just want your love, I just want your time. Girl, you always said we're done, I said we're not through yet. Baby, when it's time, then we'll draw the line. Thinking of the good things done with me, girl. Baby, just give me all the love I want. I know it's a lot to ask from you, girl, but I promise, baby, this the final shot. I've been thinking about you all day and night. Wish that all of the dark turned to light. Said I know it's hard, but it's bound to see. Baby, just come here, sit right next to me. Do it all, good and bad, saw the signs. Minds are blown, but the love still resides. I wish you would spend some time with me, girl. But you wanna give it up, give it up. Give it up, give it up. But you wanna go ahead and give it up. Give it up, give it up. But you wanna go ahead and give it up. Too much thoughts inside my head, I just want my love instead. I just want your love, I just want your time. Girl, you always said we're done, I said we're not through yet. Baby, when it's time, then we'll draw the line. And ooh, it's yours for the taking. And ooh, our love is shaking. I want the love, I just want your time. Baby, give me more, baby, give me mine. And ooh, my heart is breaking. Give it up, give it up. I just want the love, I just want your time. Give it up, give it up. I just want the love, I just want your time. Too much thoughts inside my head, I just want my love. I just want your love, I just want your time. You always say we're done, I say we're not. Baby, when it's time, shut it up. Too much thoughts inside my head, I just want my love instead. But you wanna give it up, give it up. But you wanna give it up, give it up.
All we want is to make it. All we want is success. We just want to live our lives and do it the best. Let's go.
Until I'm gone, gone, gone. Until I'm gone, gone, gone. Until I'm gone, gone, gone. Until I'm gone. Until I'm gone, gone, gone. Until I'm gone, gone, gone. Until I'm gone, gone, gone. Until I'm gone.
We came back, now with a permanent stain on your membrane that you can't brainwash out, we gon' remain. Hard to contain what you can't enchain, can't lock us down, we gon' break chains. We just want a good life like Kanye, T-Pain. We don't wanna see pain, but where I'm from, they don't wanna see rain. Still, it can't stop my train of thought, this ain't my fault. We're so far apart and we cut from a different cloth. What we cooking up, no, really gonna get them soft. Man, I'm tryna lock the game down, put it all in the vault. If it ain't about you, then you shouldn't get involved. Man, you shouldn't get involved, cause I'm like MJ going off the wall. Nobody getting spared, I gotta hit them all. Man, I gotta hit them all. Feeling like I'm Pocky, I told you before. Pass the Troy, you know I'm ready for the war. Success got a key, but I'm kicking on the door. Man, I'm kicking on the door. They expect us to fail from the day that we born. Now that we here, we gon' take what we want. They expect us to fail from the day that we born. Now that we here, we gon' take what we want. Cause
until I'm gone, gone, gone. Until I'm gone, gone, gone. Until I'm gone, gone, gone. Until I'm gone. Until I'm gone, I'll give it my all, and I won't fail. I will prevail until I'm gone. Yeah, until I'm gone, until I'm gone.
all we want is to make it. All we want is success. We just want to live our lives and do it the best. Let's go.
Until I'm gone, gone, gone. Until I'm gone, gone, gone. Until I'm gone, gone, gone. Until I'm gone. Until I'm gone, gone, gone. Until I'm gone, gone, gone. Until I'm gone, gone, gone. Until I'm gone.
We came back, now with a permanent stain on your membrane that you can't brainwash out, we gon' remain. Hard to contain what you can't enchain, can't lock us down, we gon' break chains. We just want a good life like Kanye, T-Pain. We don't wanna see pain, but where I'm from, they don't wanna see rain. Still, it can't stop my train of thought, this ain't my fault. We're so far apart and we cut from a different cloth. What we cooking up, no, really gonna get them soft. Man, I'm tryna lock the game down, put it all in the vault. If it ain't about you, then you shouldn't get involved. Man, you shouldn't get involved, cause I'm like MJ going off the wall. Nobody getting spared, I gotta hit them all. Man, I gotta hit them all. Feeling like I'm Pocky, I told you before. Pass the Troy, you know I'm ready for the war. Stats got a key, but I'm kicking on the door. Man, I'm kicking on the door.